Bam Margera is one of the most memorable MTV celebrities from the counterculture of the early 2000s. Bam achieved a lot in a relatively short period of time, from his impact on the skateboarding community to traveling across the globe in various expeditions, and most importantly starring in a stunt group that would revolutionize content creation as a whole. Bam would gain massive popularity and financial success. However, as time went on, many would be concerned about his mental health.
The only person that I will believe on the planet is Dr. Phil. Everybody else is a hee-haw head.
Bam would soon develop a history of battling addiction, erratic behavior, detrimental eating habits, denial.
If I am going nuts, it's actually my mom doing it. Because I think that the problem is everybody else. I don't even think of me as a problem, but...
Many speculate that Bam has been going on a downward slope, especially following the death of his longtime friend, Ryan Dunn. However, I have no clue if any of these claims are truth or simply exaggerations. And that's where I come in. Alright, so, hello. I'm Uncle Unbaited, and this is the life of Bam Margera. So, for the past few months, I've been working on this project, and I've been super behind by it, so I apologize. This was going to be a 2-hour video, but now it is divided into episodes, so... Throughout this series, I will go through Bam's biggest accomplishments and defeats to unveil sort of an understanding of his character, both on camera and off. So this project will be done in 4 so-called acts. Each act would have about 3 to 4 episodes. So far, my script is about 97 pages. So, I'm just gonna jump in, guys. I don't fucking have these long intros. Enjoy the video. It all started with April and Phil Margera, who met in a movie theater at the Tri-State Mall. They fell in love at first sight. April's family had a background of musicians, while Phil had a love for Elvis.
So you're dating and then you get married. Well, you were young though, right?
Mm-hmm. I was 18, she was 19.
I was 19.
Yeah,
I turned 23 weeks later though. Well, we actually got married in 76, and then we, believe it or not, we lived in an apartment for the first year, and then we bought our first house. Isn't that crazy?
Right.
And we, bought our house, decorated and all that. And so then we had Jesse in 78.
Right.
And then Bam in 79.
Yeah.
They lived in the small town of Westchester, Pennsylvania. With just a small population of 19,000, this town had very little going on. According to a 2006 interview with Big Brother magazine, Margera stated, "I got the name Bam from my grandpa. I was like 3 or something, just running into walls, being an idiot. It was just like bam, bam, bam. So it was Bam Bam forever."
That's because when you were Bam, you used to be like little Bam Bam, you're a little fizzy, you go bang, 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 and shit up. Now, you're like a you just destroy.
During an interview in the Jackass the Movie companion book, April answers a few questions about Bam's childhood. What was Bam like growing up? Basically the same person he is now. Always a daredevil, you couldn't tell him no. If you told him no, he would only do it more. He just knew what he wanted to do. When asked about what was the earliest stunt you could remember him doing, she said that when he was 3, he went off on a pretty big ramp with a big wheel. So during a podcast with Rab's Bathroom Break, Jess talked about the house they grew up in that was right off of South Concord Road. It was bought by their parents in 1979 and was known for being across the street from a waste treatment plant. It would frequently smell like shit as the years go by.
Development started coming in and more poop was I would go out and get the mail and be like, Jesus Christ.
Bam was never the one to take school seriously. He was irresponsible, he was tardy, always getting himself into trouble for wanting to do things his own way. But that doesn't mean he was lazy. Bam would meet many of his long-term friends through Westchester East High School. However, he met Chris Rab prior.
Well, it's funny when you say like 10, 11, because we met way back. I mean, I met Bam first. We were in, I think it was 2nd grade, so we were just 7 years old or whatever, and we met through, we always joke because it was like, hey, you got a bowl cut? I got a bowl cut too. and then that's, and then all of a sudden we were friends.
Hey, it's there.
Rab himself was born on May 21st, 1980. Rab revealed in an interview with the Metal Mixtape and discussed how Bam received his first camera through his father Phil, after seeing Bam's outstanding skateboarding potential. Chris Rab was known as a hellraiser in high school. He was obnoxious and he was pretty proud of it. One example of messing with people was how he approached some jock at the fucking payphone.
And Rab would just hang it up and wait till the quarter drops down and then he'd laugh.
This was revealed in a 2001 documentary they created on VHS. Life for Bam would change following a digital media class in high school. Here he met Brandon DiCamillo, aka Deco, who was born on November 15th, 1976. So in the Jackass companion book, Bam was actually asked what interested him in filming random stuff, and he stated that it was probably in the 9th grade, when he met Brandon, Ryan, Art, and everybody in graphics art. During this period, most of his friends were in the 12th grade, while Bam was in the 9th. Another quick story is when Rab had a job as a pizza delivery boy, and in the event when someone didn't tip, Bam and Deco would go to their house and mess up their mailbox. And this was actually recorded on the CKY documentary.
Brand.
Art Webb is remembered as a cameo character in the CKY universe. However, Webb and Bam were rather tight in high school, and if it wasn't for Art, Bam would not have been introduced to his brother Raekyeon, his real name being Edward Webb, who was born on January 20th, 1975. We'll talk more about him in a little bit. Ryan Dunn was born on June 11th, 1977 in Medina, Ohio. He spent most of his childhood in Brecksville. He then would later move to Westchester at the age of 16, where he was transferred to East High School. Dunn would become Bam's closest friend, and he of course would be known for being a future member of Jackass. Alright, so the 2001 CKY documentary I'm talking about came in the CKY box set, and it would feature skits created by Bam's crew throughout their high school years. In addition, the Ryan Dunn tribute special would briefly do the same. One early official skit was in 1993 with a bit titled The Sasquatch. The bit was about Bam and Chris Hanna searching for a Sasquatch, played by Chris's brother Mark. Mark does a goofy shriek resulting in a sheriff, played by Jess Margera, to drop his firearm. It was getting dark, so they needed to end the skit, and the best way to do it was to have Chris taking a shit off of a bridge. Mark and Chris Hanna are brothers and will be good friends with Bam throughout the years. In 1994, they made a skit called East Football. This was during a period where Deco actually had long hair, and he was rooting for a, and I quote,
Rehoboth, which is a gay football team.
He got thrown off the bleachers and beaten by Bam. The group used a stuffed dummy for the stunts in this, like throwing him from the top of the bleachers, and also my favorite part where Bam fucking grabs a rock and throws it at the dummy's nuts. And then Dunn would come in and drive his fucking Chrysler LeBron into the fake ass Deco. The Ryan Dunn tribute special mentioned that Bam, Jess, and Ryan would create a band called Soul Roach, with Dunn being the frontman. The group attended the Westchester Battle of the Bands and came in last. Captain Undies is a skit mentioned by Dunn, created in 1994. Dunn plays a superhero that attempts to save Bam, who plays a
young lad being beaten.
Two hillbilly-esque characters played by Tim and David Bataro would interfere. They would gently attack Ryan, then have their way with him. I kinda can't use a certain word due to YouTube regulations, so let's just say it ends with Ryan having bloody underwear. Alright, so real quick, on a more grim note, September 21st, 1995 would be the day when Ryan would get Bam, Rab, Jess, and himself in an almost severe car accident. Dunn was driving a Lent Volkswagen Jetta and was heading down Route 202 when another driver veered in front of Dunn. Dunn was driving at almost 100 miles an hour, thus losing control of the car. It sent it flipping over 8 times into oncoming traffic. Jess would get launched out of the car, resulting in a broken arm. Bam, who at first refused to wear a seatbelt, would be forced by Rab to wear one when the car was reaching 100 miles per hour, which was a decision that probably saved his life. Rab actually came out unscathed.
My part of the car, like nothing had happened to it at all, and I just kind of got out and was just confused. And look at everybody's just in panic, and there's cars like skidding out, getting out, couldn't believe any of us were alive, let alone all of us.
In 1996, they did a skit titled Mad Scientist.
Ew, what the fuck is in there?
Deco was basically playing with dry ice.
The whole time I'm just trying to see how far I can take it with Art, and we also bought some dry ice, so there you go. It's Mad Scientist land with bubbling water. And Art always wears this chain on his neck. Like, that was his tough stage, and he would always have those flannels with the cut-off sleeves, so I just wanted to fuck with him as bad as I could, and and then just watch him freak out.
So he would grab Art's chain and dip it into this fluid and put it on him so now he can see the future. And then Art all of a sudden gets hot towards Deco, who walked off to throw up. The bit featured Brandon drinking a serum that would make him see in 1 week in advance. However, since he was thinking about next week, he had no idea of what he was thinking presently. So Deco ends the bit in a very over-the-top sort of way by riding a bike with a torch in one hand screaming "The British are coming" at 3 a.m. Ryan G, aka The Gill, was a professional photographer who worked with Bam on many future projects. G grew up in northern New Jersey and took up skateboarding in his pre-teens. G took an interest in photography during his 3rd semester in college in 1993. He soon moved to Philadelphia and became a major contributor to Love Park's scene, featuring his work in skateboarding magazines, most notable being Trans World magazine in 1994. G was a part of the CKY crew. He would do photography work with Bam for many years to come. G would receive the title Shit Goose on the bonus footage of CKY 2K.
Goddamn, I know you're there. You're probably just sitting there sleeping like a goddamn shit goose. Shit goose, fine, you're then the gay vulture then. The gay vulture.
G would also be nicknamed The Gill, following an accident where he ruptured his spleen, resulting in a scar after attempting a triple high dive. On Radio Bam 36, Bam revealed he dared G to do it at age 16.
I was in intensive care unit. I had 2.5 pints of blood in my stomach. And they had to pump that shit out. Meanwhile, this fucker takes my truck and just joyrides it back to Philly.
Makes his dad come get him.
After G was hospitalized, Bam and Maldonado stole G's truck and parked it in a no parking spot, resulting in an accumulation of tickets. I don't know why they did that, but they did. According to professional skateboarder Tim O'Connor, he stated, Ryan G, a type of carbon-based life form, not only sleeps a lot, it also hibernates. This human calls himself a veggie for health reasons, but at the same time smokes cigarettes and eats cancer-causing wow potato chips constantly. Somehow though this disturbed lifestyle, he has figured out the formula for taking honey-glazed photos on a daily basis. Take photos like his, but do not live like him. I'm the reason he has the gill. Bam, G, and another famous skater, Mike Maldonado, would film a bit titled Truck Jumping, where Bam asked G if he could fuck up his own car, because Bam's logic is that,
ask G, I'm like, G, let's just go fuck your car up because your dad paid for it. I mean, he'll just get you another one if it's all jacked, so let's just go wreck it. And he was like, okay, and I was like, alright.
G agreed to this, and they spent the entire day driving off-road and flooring it over bridges, and of course catching all the footage they can.
This is the first skit we did with 16mm film, and we were so amped to do it that we woke up at 7 in the morning to get it done.
They were so excited for this that they allegedly got up at 7 a.m. to record the Billy Idol skit. So the CKY documentary version would feature a track by the band Him, probably for copyright reasons. However, the original bit can be found in the bonus content section of CKY 1. This time, it would be in color and feature the original track, White Wedding by Billy Idol. In '97, they created a short titled Pie Skit. So Phil Margera would be known as a baker that worked for the Westchester Acme grocery chain. So Bam enters the supermarket, goes to the cake decoration section and grabs a pie. Then he walks behind the counter while passing pacifist Phil, who was eating, and casually asking Bam what he's doing with the dessert. Bam then goes out back, walks up to Deco, who was doing the dishes, and throws the pie into Deco's face. Brandon then eats it and says this.
Apple.
Lastly, the CKY documentary featured a 1997 skit called How to Rob a House. The bit is considered a centerpiece. It's the cover image of the CKY documentary, featuring Bam and Deco during this bit. This was where Deco and Bam tell you how to break into a house, providing ridiculous tips and slapstick along the way. Bam would stuff his cheeks for some of the scenes for these segments, and it's pretty funny. Deco and Bam break into the house using a fork. Then while inside the house, the two discuss how to rob the place. One example, they mentioned about taking just the valuables. So for that bit, Bam stands outside with a bag open. Deco then grabs a bunch of plates from the cupboards, walks over to the window, and chucks the plates into Bam's bag, resulting in them shattering on the porch floor, and then blames Bam for it.
Now, you ruined all the valuables, you idiot! That was what was worth money! Holy shit! Alright, let's go. Let's go.
My favorite moment is when Jess comes out with a rifle the second time. Deco takes the gun out of his hand and says,
Give me that fucking gun. I'm robbing your house. Now get back to the fucking t-shirt. I want this t-shirt. Get back to bed. Get on.
Bam then steals Jess's t-shirt and they leave. I also just want to mention briefly that the skit ends with them spitting into each other's hands and giving themselves a handshake. If you haven't seen How to Rob a House, I really recommend it. It's pretty funny. Alright, so let's talk about the end of high school. Bam dropped out of high school around the end of his junior year after Chris Rabb was expelled from Westchester East High School for taking a shit in a locker. Alright, let me explain. So Rabb revealed in a bathroom podcast about the incident, his antics led to the school counselor drawing a line. If Rabb does one more outrageous act, he will be expelled. He thought that there was no way he could possibly go 6 months without doing something fun. So in class, he told Bam that he was going to shit in the teacher's coffee mug. Bam doubted him, but Rabb did it. He shit in a coffee mug in the hallway, but the prank backfired.
Story Bam tells, but
Are
no,
you
there was
sure?
no. Yeah, he didn't talk me into any
I
of that.
felt so bad about that. I'm like, oh my
No,
god.
but that's what always would bug me because I'm like, I'm my own person. But because I was in the hallway and this girl was coming and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna get caught. So I threw it onto the lockers and then threw the cup into the bathroom and then ran away and there's shit on my foot and there's all, but
Rabb panicked and threw the mug with shit inside of it into the locker, therefore smearing shit on a locker. Bam was getting heat by the school guidance counselor for his behavior. There's a journal entry that's actually featured on page 111 on Bam's version of Kurt Cobain Journals, titled Serious as Dog Dirt, which he stated, Rabb got expelled from East High School for shitting on a locker, which gave me the brilliant idea to quit. I already knew what I wanted to do with my life, which was skating. I had to listen to my guidance counselor tell me I was making a terrible decision because skateboarding is a fad and it will disappear in 2 years. Then he started rambling on about a student similar to me who quit to become a famous rapper, and he saw him 2 years later working at McDonald's. All the shit he said was in one ear and out the other. I felt I was good enough to be a professional skater, and I was willing to fly to California to F out. Then there's always the infamous question teachers and relatives and your girlfriend parents ask, what happens if you break your neck? Then what? Then I say, I'll wait for my neck to heal. Then I will try the same trick again. And they all look at you like you're a idiot. Fuck it. There's no way I'm being miserable like all of you people working a 9 to 5 every day. I'll take my chances. He may not value his institutional education. You may think he didn't get a diploma, but that isn't true. April actually homeschooled Bam and assisted him with getting his GED, which he did achieve before his class even graduated. Many would want to classify Bam as too dumb for school, but this is a misconception that all dropouts are poorly educated. Bam was clearly smart enough to become a successful skater, editor, and expressing a remarkable amount of creativity. To him, school was just an obstacle from his success, and he wasn't really wrong about that. Alright, so I gotta be honest with you guys. I don't know shit when it comes to skateboarding. I've never skated. I've played a lot of Tony Hawk games, so at least I got that. But I apologize ahead of time if I mislabel certain tricks and whatnot. I'm trying my best and I'm learning a lot actually. Obviously, you cannot have a Bam Margera video and not discuss his skateboarding career, so it's essential for this project that I talk about this. So let's jump in. So Bam started skating around the age of 7. Bam's parents were highly supportive of both brothers.
Sort of thing.
Well, Phil worked for like some tuxedo company for years, and then the guy sold the company, and then Phil was just like, well, now what do I do? So
yeah.
He just drove us around to skate parks and built us ramps, like,
dude,
hell
yeah.
Like trying to find a new job.
One of the earliest pieces of Bam Margera skateboarding media was probably in 1992 for the promoter H Street. During the 16-second runtime, we see Bam do a blunt to fakie and a handful of other tricks on a vert ramp. During an interview with Steve-O's Wild Ride, Bam reveals his first sponsorship was at the age of 13 with Fairman Skate Shop. At 16, H Street sponsored him. Soon after he received that sponsorship, he also got one with Plan B. Bam was featured in a wide variety of video magazines. Bam was featured in the 7th edition of the skateboarding video magazine 411. He was listed under the amateur spotlight, Wheels of Fortune.
Hi, I'm Bam. I'm 14, I've been skating for 7 years.
Before I get any further, I want to talk about a skateboarding location known as Love Park. Located just 35 miles westward of Westchester lies a skateboarding hotspot known as Love Park. The park is nicknamed Love Park for its reproduction of Robert Indiana's 1970 Love Sculpture, which overlooks John F. Kennedy Plaza. Love Park was located in a really dangerous area of Philly. There were drug dealers, mentally unstable homeless people, and of course there was a police presence that detoured your average worker from wanting to visit on their lunch break.
There were these like random dudes dressed as bums that would just sit there, and they were just undercover cops.
Despite Love Park's poor crime, it had a legacy like no other. Most skating spots have about one architectural flaw that skateboarders can fuck with, that being a gap, a rail, or whatever. But Love Park was considered a mecca, a spot with so many trick locations it almost seemed designed for skaters. Smooth adjustable granite tiling, polished benches and railing, movable trash cans and tables, and of course the iconic fountain gap.
Wenning's trying switch heel flip, almost did it, came so close.
These was just to name a few of the spots that you can skate on at Love Park. The history of Love Park needs to be mentioned in this project. I honestly wish I could talk about it in more detail. However, I'm still just going to try to keep it relative enough in regards to the Margera project. Jess Margera mentioned in an interview about both him and Bam, when they were in their preteens, took a bus to Love Park to get involved with the skateboarding culture. It was chaos every day. I remember cops tackling dudes with a gun. They'd shoot in the air and we'll all have to run. Multiple guns pointed at me. It was nuts, man. Like huge fights. Some New York dudes would come down and start some shit with the Philly guys, and Ricky Iola would always end it. That dude is insane, dude. Ricky Iola was always the one swinging his board, hitting dudes in the head. I'm 14, sitting there like, alright, I'm gonna go now. So obviously I can't go into detail of Love Park's story, so I highly recommend to check out the 2004 documentary, The Love Park Story. It was produced by Trans World Skateboarding, link here. In 1994, the city of Philadelphia banned skateboarding in the park.
I can't believe how much shit went down at Love when they knew that there was a month left.
And luckily, with the help of returning skater Josh Kalis, he began to bring the scene back to the park. The park still enforced the ban by having undercover cops, which allegedly were bribed at one point with DC shoes.
Josh Kalis actually saved the scene, because if he wouldn't have came back to Philly, it would be no Brian Winning, it would be no Stevie Williams.
Skate culture at Love still made its mark, to the point where Philly hosted the 2001 X Games due to the status of Love Park.
You know, so the X Games obviously saw that. They know all the popularity. That's why they tried to get it at Love Park, but the city didn't want to have that. So they let us have it at City Hall.
This was bittersweet. It was cool that X Games could be hosted at Philadelphia, but it was kind of bitter because it didn't take place at Love Park, but rather Town Hall. And it's sad to say that legislation agreed with having the X Games at first, but after, things turned grim.
Like, damn, they're really closing this down.
Legislation following this led to the second ban of skateboarding at the park, and this was thick. By 2002, they put up a whole fence around Love Park. Not only that, but they redesigned the whole park. This broke the hearts of the skateboarding community. Once seen as the epicenter of East Coast skateboarding has turned to nothing more but a mere shell of its former self. Skaters also criticized how the government probably spent more money protecting the park through police salaries and the damages they would cause than the actual damage that skaters would cause in the first place.
It's illegal for us to skate here because we're quote-unquote destroying this place, but this motocross bike is revving up the stairs, like chasing us. Like, what kind of damage is this doing to the place?
But that's where I'll leave this topic. I put this in my video for two reasons. One, Bam was a part of this community in the 1990s and most likely met a lot of his connections through this park.
So get this, we're gonna go. We're here for 3 minutes and I have a ticket. Can you meet me in Love, please?
Two, it just displays the amount of passion that the skateboarding community expresses. Nobody seemed to give a shit about this low-life park until the skaters came in and saw it as one of their homes. This story is inspiring and it helped put East Coast skateboarding on the map. It is too iconic to not include in this video. The drama in regards to the story of Love Park sparked a need for change for Philadelphia skaters. In 1996, a plot of no man's land located underneath I-95 would go through a decade-long transition to become Philadelphia's next big skate park. I'm referring to FDR Skate Park. FDR will become a recognizable icon in skateboarding culture on the East Coast of the United States. I'm going to keep this vague and just tell you that Bam has ridden this park a lot in his career. He was even a part of the 2005 Gravity Games, which I'll probably talk about in Act 2. Obviously, I can't dissect every single piece of Bam Margera skateboarding content, there's way too much out there. I'm going to only mention the ones I can find here on YouTube. Bam has been featured in a variety of escape tapes that were sold in shops throughout the US. Before the age of 18, Bam was traveling all across the East Coast to fulfill his love for skateboarding. This brings me to the Fairman Skate Shop trilogy, which was released in 1993 to 1996. Bam's very first sponsorship was with Fairman Skate Shop, as I mentioned earlier, and can be sourced to their first 3 tapes. The first tape was filmed and edited by Dan Wolf, and the second and third was filmed and edited by Joe Hiddleston, and featured the likes of Kerry Getz, Jimmy Chung, Mike Maldonado, and of course, friends. Joe Hiddleston's YouTube would become the home of the Joe Hiddleston tapes, a series of tapes filmed during the period of 1992 to 1997. The tapes featured the names as I mentioned above, including Bam Margera. The first Fairman's tape was released around 1993. Episode 3 is the earliest to feature Bam on the channel. Filmed in summer of '92, it featured the likes of Bam, Dan, Jimmy, and Mike skating around downtown DC. Mind, this was when Bam was 13 years old. You get some pretty hilarious shots of Bam raging in this.
Oh! What the fuck? Why'd I step off? Alright, this is it.
Most of this footage would be put into another skate tape titled Eastern Exposure, which was released in 1993. Fairman's 2 was released around 1995. Bam's segment in Fairman's 2 listed him as Tank Margera.
Bam's not Bam anymore, he's evolved to a tank.
It can be speculated that it was due to him relentlessly trying the same trick until he got it right. This can be sourced to episode 6 of the Hiddleston tapes.
You getting tired out? No. Bam's non-stop. Dude, fuck yeah.
This episode was during the filming of Fairman's 3, and it displays Bam attempting to do a 50-50 right next to a busy intersection of West Philly. The entire video is dedicated to this one trick. The credits for Fairman's 2 will display outtakes of the group having fun. This includes Bam doing a recognizable stunt where he throws himself into a bed and whiplashes back to standing. He also credited his friends, parents, and your mama. Fairman's 3 would be released in 1996 and featured tapes filmed as early as '95. These include episodes 7 and 9, which would be filmed in fall of '95 in downtown Philly. Episode 8 would be filmed in summer of '95 at the infamous Magic Skate Park in Jackson Wald, PA. It was a park built in 1978 and it was a hotspot for skaters and BMXers until it closed in the 1980s. However, the park was still skatable, and all one had to do was climb a fence, until it was finally destroyed in 2002. Bam's segment in Fairman's 3 honestly displays the growth of Bam's skill. Here, you start to see Bam bombing more experimental environments, taking a lot more air and technique than you would see before. Fairman's 3 would also include an outtake where Bam is trying to persuade someone for him to continue to skate. Bam even tried to bribe him with $5.
Yeah, if I do this, I'm gonna get lots of money. I share it with you, dude.
Ain't nothing happening here, that's it.
He'll make it and then I'll leave. That's it. I'll give you $5. No, man, get out of here, man.
Episode 4 of the Hiddleston tapes was filmed during the 1996 Shred for Life benefit in Edison, New Jersey. It was a skateboarding demo event that featured hundreds of skaters and dozens of pros. The best shot in the whole tape was probably about 3.5 minutes in, where some dude attempted to do a frontside board slide and slipped and resulted in the board hitting the camera and the footage cut off. Episode 5 would feature Bam, Mike meeting up with Tim O'Connor in Manhattan in spring of 1997. Here they filmed for Toy Machine Jump Off a Bridge. Some of the shots made it into the tape, including Bam's nollie over a set of stairs, which Bam would become known for. Despite being present during the filming of Toy Machine's Welcome to Hell, Bam was not featured in this film, but he would soon gain a sponsorship by Toy Machine Skateboards in 1998, and during which Bam would be featured in their skate tape Jump Off a Bridge. This piece featured some clips from CKY, like How to Rob a House and Pie Skit. Bam had 2 features in Jump Off a Bridge, and both were great. His segments were memorable for being both a hybrid of skateboarding and stunt work, which also featured him doing a front flip off the 2nd floor of a mall into a fountain. Bam's early skate videos displayed his raw talent and creativity. There was a level of fun in this feature. I believe that is what made Bam's skating unique. It wasn't like he was the best, but he would skate on things most people wouldn't consider. Bam's Park Footy is another segment featured in the tape where he skates around at FDR, while the band CKY plays in the background. Bam and his friends competed in the Tampa Am 1998 Street Finals. The Tampa Pro is considered to be one of the biggest in the country. However, Bam would rank last out of the 10 skaters that competed in the amateur division. Fellow friend Kerry Getz achieved 3rd, and in the pro division, Mike Maldonado actually achieved 5th. In 1999, Transworld released their tape, Feedback. This is one of my personal favorite tapes so far. It's mostly centering around street skating, and it has a remarkable lineup of skaters. I really enjoyed the interview with Jason Dill. There was a lot of scenes of slice of life, with people confronting skaters and skaters confronting bystanders. Some shots were even included at Love Park. I really just love the editing and the cinematography in this tape. It's really remarkable for the time considered. Bam is featured about 20 minutes into the tape with him screaming his ass off. He apparently screamed at a cement truck driver who flipped him off in exchange. Bam would also do some CKY stunts in this, the best example falling with a box fan in front of ongoing traffic and jumping on a massive hedge. If you're curious about skateboarding culture, this tape is a must watch. I really enjoyed this one.
Dude, it's in my name.
That's why I'm gonna hurt it.
In the summer of 2000, ON Video released their premiere skate tape, featuring the likes of Mike Vallely, Bob Burnquist, Kerry Getz, and an in-depth look at X Games gold medalist Danny Way. Bam's segment would be titled Bam Margera Questions Authority, and it's the debut of a familiar face.
Where you can get kicked out of a street.
A man pulls up and tells Bam he can't skate here because it's private property. But it's no rent-a-cop. It's Bam's uncle, Don Vito.
Ford, how do I know you're a rent-a-cop? I'm not a rent-a-cop. You just stole the car.
I'm gonna hold off on mentioning my Don Vito video till later on in the project in a more appropriate time. But for now, let's discuss his debut. Don Vito got out of his red Ford truck and throws a Nerf football at Bam while censorship does its work on his F-bombs. Funny looking back at this since we can already recognize Vito from Bam's future projects, but back then, I'm sure your fellow 13-year-old who bought this believed it was real. The rest of this bit features Authority complaining at Bam for skating in various locations. Bam's response is what you would expect out of a rebellious kid being told what to do. He talks back, he pushes buttons, and he acts like a complete jackass.
Okay, get your and get out of here before I call the cops. No.
At the Tampa Pro 2000 Street Finals, which were taking place on March 11, 2000, Bam placed 8 out of 10, which was an improvement from the last one. He wasn't the best on a technical standpoint, because I feel like he may have choked halfway. He was able to get a nose grind and a blunt to fakie, and he attempted a frontside board slide, but wiped out on the first go. He was able to get it on the second attempt. Same thing for a 360 bank transfer. I think it's awesome that a lot of these tapes can be found right here on YouTube. I admire Bam's passion portrayed in his early skateboarding tapes. It seemed clear that he was driven to make skateboarding his livelihood, and that drive pushed him to constantly skate at hotspots, network with other skaters, and get in contact with big names and labels in the scene. Bam's drive to want to pursue skateboarding led to some traction in his career, but meanwhile, at 899 South Concord Road, located in front of a sewage processing plant, there was something brewing in the basement of the Margeras, and that was the band known as CKY. Today, we're talking about CKY 1 and 2, and we're also talking about this. CKY was a band that was pioneered by 3 main individuals, Jess Margera, Chad Ginsburg, and Darren Miller. The band wouldn't form until around 1998, so here's some background. So in high school, Jess Margera would hang out with the Hanna brothers a lot.
The Hannas, like, maybe a little more than Bam.
Yeah.
And Chris was just an amazing guitar player. His room was just like where magic happened, you know? Like,
yeah.
So yeah, I have Chris Hanna to thank for like introducing me to like Bowie, Lou Reed, AC/DC, Pink Floyd, Zeppelin, you know, like.
Hell yeah.
And when he started playing guitar, and getting like really good at it, then it just made me want to jam with them. And like, you know, I knew a little bit about drumming from my uncles, you know, like Matt and Dan, well, Shitbird. And, and
everyone's like, who's Matt? Shitbird.
But he also played for a punk band called The Boyles before the band went by that name. Jess took drumming influences from the likes of Primus and Clutch. Darren Miller started playing the guitar at the age of 8. He was infatuated by Ace Frehley of Kiss. Darren always wanted to be a musician. At a young age, he actually made a fake cardboard record for a band called Illuminous. Darren grew up in a very small town called Marlton, New Jersey. Darren hated it.
There's a backstory to Marlton growing up that pretty much fucked me up for good.
Forever.
Darren's music taste would grow more into the metal genre, with the likes of Metallica and Ozzy. This would later grow into a love for underground death metal, including the likes of Nocturnal Fear, Incantation, Malevolent Creation, Vicious Circle, and Moral Decay. Miller's father decided to move to Westchester, a decision that Miller supported. He even got an option between 2 high schools to transfer to, which winded him up in Westchester East High School. Miller was prone to depression and apathy in his studies. As a result, his grades suffered and required him to repeat 9th grade while in 10th grade. In high school, Darren created a cheesy glam metal band called Aches and Pains, spelled like this.
So yeah, so you ended up in East High School, and what grade?
It's kind of hard to figure it out because I was so depressed in 9th grade in New Jersey. My grades literally were 2 D's and 4 F's.
That sounds familiar.
My grade point average.
Jess and Darren bonded by making fun of their oblivious math teacher, who had a liking for drawing the number 8.
And started drawing 1. And I'm just thinking, why am I in here? So me and Jess would make fun of her like so badly. Like I used to actually call out to her.
Jess mentioned he played drums, and Darren was reluctant due to his age difference, but was willing to give him a chance. This led to the fabrication of Foreign Objects. Foreign Objects was in the following battle of the bands, but lost due to their growling vocals. The group would always meet in Jess's basement to create music. The basement sucked.
But dude, that basement was like some amazing shit came out of that basement. I mean, I just remember like, you know, Bam getting up there and just like jumping on a mic and just making up bullshit, and like the Christmas songs would come from
It was known for being waterlogged, bug infested, and it was cramped as all holy hell. But hey, a place to play is a place to play. Plus, Ape and Phil, as I said, they're very supportive. They allowed them to play as late as 4 in the morning. Foreign Objects released a 5-track EP titled The Undiscovered Numbers and Colors in 1995. Miller fabricated the guitars, bass, synthesizers, and vocals, while Jess played mostly drums, but also contributed to the creative effort. The EP is closer to alternative metal with technical melancholic elements. Blabbermouth.net would actually describe their style as neo-technical death metal. One of their tracks from this EP can be found in Bam's segment of Fairman's 2. Darren stated that The Undiscovered Numbers and Colors was intended to be released as a full-length album, but due to Margera suffering a broken arm in a car accident that we talked about already, they were unable to complete the record to do so. So let's talk about the band they were in following this, called Oil. Well, Darren would develop a relationship with someone at a metal magazine known by the name of Metal Maniacs. Darren wrote a letter about his favorite bands being dropped from a record label called Roadrunner, which attracted the likes of Monty Connor, a vice president of A&R for Roadrunner Records. Connor would write a long letter in response explaining why all of his bands individually were dropped from the label. But this led to a relationship where they began to write back and forth, giving him an opportunity to pitch his music. Foreign Objects didn't sell well to Monty.
I didn't have any new material because this end up was broken up, and he already said Foreign Objects was really cool, but it just wasn't in style. It wasn't going to sell anything.
Yeah.
And he was right. I mean,
so the two decided to collaborate on a more simple, radio-friendly form of their music under the name Oil in 1996. Darren hated Oil, and the producer he pitched didn't like it either. It was so bad, Monty turned it off.
First he turned it down, and I was like, turn it up so you can hear it. He's like, no, they don't let us play music loud in here.
Giving the advice that Darren can't do everything in the band, and he also simply can't sing. So in '97, Oil released Gold Tape, a 6-track EP. The EP did fairly well. It sold 300 tape that they made themselves. The band would also begin to play more live shows at local venues. I think Daron is a bit too hard on Oil's releases. It was nowhere near as good as CKY, but it's not unlistenable. But in Daron's perspective, at his roots, he's a death metal guy, so it kind of makes sense why he wasn't proud of Oil. However, Oil did have some memorable tracks, most notable being In High Five, which was remastered in CKY's Volume 1 under the name Human Drive and High Five. By '98, the band grew, adding bassist Ryan Bruni, who they met while working their day jobs at UPS. Oil was on the brink of being dissolved following the entry of Chad Ginsburg. Chad Ginsburg would be the oldest in the band. Prior to meeting the group, he was part of a rock band known as Rudy and Blitz. The band was sold to Rough House Records in '95, but due to issues with the deal, the album was shelved and Ginsburg was down to square one. Chad ended up traveling to California to try to get his CD signed. However, he ended up running out of money and he had to move back to Pennsylvania. He wound up working for a 2-inch analog studio known as The Groundhog in Holland, PA. This is where he met his future bandmates, who were looking for someone to work on a demo for both Oil and Foreign Objects. Ginsburg pitched the idea to combine elements of Oil, Foreign Objects, and Rudy and Blitz to create a new project for the group.
He told me in his senior year, and we had already taken him around to colleges, and we looked at everything, and then he made the big announcement that he didn't want to go to college, he was going to be a musician. I remember saying to Jesse, you know, okay, here's the deal. The deal is you have 2 years to make this happen. Give it 120%. And if you don't make it in 2 years and I find you sleeping all day or you're not working for your craft, then we pull the plug and then we'll re-examine college.
Daron wanted to create a band that combined his love for death metal and the horror genre while also implementing Jess's love for rock and roll. Daron purchased a Boss Octave OC2 guitar pedal. Basically, it made single notes double in sound. Daron loved it and decided to use the pedal for pretty much everything. So during an interview with Sinners Ball Radio, Daron mentioned that at first it was proposed to name the band I Dismember Mama, after the 1972 horror film of the same name. Camp Kill Yourself was decided since it sounded like the perfect title for a horror movie. CKY would release their first album titled Volume 1 on February 27, 1999. The album costed about $15,000, which was funded by Miller's father. The lyrics for CKY songs would have a foundation of storytelling and fantasy, featuring themes of depression, the media, deformity, and emotion. Their first single, 96 Bitter Beings, was their only single for the record. It told the story of a small fictional town of Hellview. The song tells the tale of strangers driving through the town, getting trapped in a flood. Then they flee from 96 dangerous, segregated outcasts that live there. This story would continue in their 2002 record, Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild, and is known as the Hellview Trilogy. Some tracks choose to take a darker narrative. For example, Disengage the Simulator. It's about a man deciding to commit suicide by driving his car off of a bridge, but on the way down, thinking twice about his actions, he admits that he is wrong. But it was too late, and he had to accept his fate. There was also a sense of humor in CKY for tracks like My Promiscuous Daughter, a song about They would also release Volume 2 that same day. Volume 2 is where the influences of CKY's crew came in. Volume 2 would feature B-sides, rarities, Christmas songs, and my favorite, prank calls. So Volume 2 would feature content created by Jess, Bam, and his friends over the years. The 2002 re-release of Volume 2 would feature Rake Young on the cover, and it had over 2 hours of content. The prank calls were probably the best part, taking up the entire second CD, all done by Deco himself.
What do you think, Brian? Can I help you?
Hi, how you doing? My name's Frank. I was told you guys are the 24-hour copying place.
Yep.
You guys, so you're open right now?
Right.
Alright, I wanted to know, I don't know if you guys could do this, but maybe a little extra money might do the talking. I got a couple of Eagle tickets, and I want to bring 2 of my buddies, and we only got 2 tickets, but there's 4 of us. Is there any way you guys can duplicate the tickets?
No.
Deco's wayward personality sparked anger in many he contacted.
Well, I really don't think she'd be interested with someone like you as a...
Ooh, here we go. Oh yeah, let me tell you all about it.
Who do you think you are?
I'm the Macho Man. Have another one, a bite of my Slim Jim, baby. Oh, yeah.
One prank call was about how his wife owns an at-home daycare center and wanted to know if he could purchase shock collars for the kids. And since it works on dogs, then it would work on kids, right?
Children. Yeah, but it's not done. Cannot do that. If it's good for a dog, it's good for the kids, right? Dog's best friend, man. Dogs are a boy's best friend.
That's correct. But
No, they're running in the streets, UPS, up and down.
I hope you have a really good day because you have definitely made me have a good day.
I made you have a good day?
Yes, you did. People are there listening to this conversation on the speakerphone.
Dogs are people.
Well, dogs and people, I want to know.
So a lot of these calls were harmless regardless of the language that consists it. It kind of reminds me of a derivative of the Jerky Boys. Deco would always get a reaction from his high level of energy. It's absolutely insane.
How the f***? No, I'm gonna f*** with this guy. He sat here and f***ed me for 20 minutes. I'm gonna f*** with him for 20 minutes.
Oh no, Jay, because I'm going.
I listened to these just earlier today, and honestly, they're very entertaining. I recommend going out of your way to listen to them. As we discussed, Bam has been a part of many skateboarding tapes in his career so far, so naturally, it would only inspire Bam to do it on his own this time. That's where the CKY movies would come in, taking the collection of stunt, skits, jokes, skating, and collaborating it all into the CKY video series. Let's talk about CKY 1999. During this period, Bam was traveling around the US for work, residing in California for a brief period working for Toy Machine. He made about $750 a month skating in San Francisco. Meanwhile, back at home, he had an archive of tapes he filmed over the years. This old 2002 photo of Bam in his editing room. Rab himself honored Bam for how disciplined he was during this period, turning down nights to go out to party because he wanted to focus on his potential career.
So he would video it, never tape over it, and just save every bit of footage. And it was years later that he basically said, you know, I want to put together a video of all of this stuff. And so he put together a video and edited, and that was the first CKY.
Landspeed CKY would be the fruit of Bam's labor, eventually selling over 1 million copies worldwide. Landspeed CKY was a collection of Bam's archive of home videos, showcasing Bam's friends doing comical shit, contrasting it with skateboarding footage while also implementing CKY's first album. Released on VHS on March 1st, 1999, Landspeed CKY was sold at mom and pop skate shops throughout North America. Landspeed was a division of Tom Yeddo Incorporated from 1998 to 2000. The full company name was Landspeed Wheels, or Landspeed Research Wheels. As you would have guessed, they made skateboarding wheels as well as clothing. It turns out that Bam was swindled by Tom Yeddo. During a trip to Iceland, Bam learned that CKY had a PAL version. This accumulated in 90 grand in profit that Bam not only didn't receive, but didn't even know existed. As a result, Bam left Toy Machine and took CKY with him. Landspeed Wheels later went into liquidation, being classified as a complete failure. I think it'd be important to mention this line by Jeff Margera when he talks about this in the Jenkin magazine. We went in the warehouse and there was all of our albums and all of our VHS tapes, merch, and stuff like that. Well, we need stuff to sell on Warped Tour, so we're taking all this. And they were all like, yeah, okay, that's fine. They knew that if we started digging into their accounting, it would be bad news. I was able to get my hands on the CKY VHS box set. Here's credit to the person on eBay. Released in 2002, it featured CKY 1, 2, and 3 and the documentary. Landspeed CKY's VHS would feature 25 minutes of bonus footage.
My name's Scott Bradford. I'm 19, I'm gonna be 20 like December.
The introduction welcomes you with the track Human Drive and Hi-Fi. Right off the bat, we are introduced to various stunts and skits credited to the cast. The skate segments featured the likes of Carrie Getz, Mike Maldonado, and Bam Margera skating in various locations. It also features footage at the Tampa Pro event while 96 Quiet Bitter Beings played in the background. This movie is where we were introduced to Rake Yan. One Saturday morning, Deco hit up Rake to come out for filming at Penn State, which later became the Army and Legend of Football skits in Landspeed CKY. Rake is known for being a long-haired metalhead, a future chemist, and most notably, his great disdain for mustard.
Why do you hate mustard so bad?
Because I always fucking hated it my whole life. And Art would fuck with me.
Yeah.
It's the whole combination of the chemicals that are in the seeds and the nasty ass fucking vinegar, I just didn't like it. I didn't like it in my sandwiches. I didn't want it on me.
My feelings on Landspeed CKY are kind of mixed. I love the bit of Deco cursing this innocent dude on the phone, just accusing him of saying lewd things to his wife.
And I pushed *69, and I've got you. Now who told my wife? Who said that to my wife? Was it you? I have the police's phone number.
This bit was just hilarious because Brandon just goes off on this guy. One of the many Deco off-the-cuff comedy segments. A CKY staple would be their shopping cart stunts. While Lost in Contraption played in the background, the crew launches each other using shopping carts. While sprinting at full speed, someone rides inside it. They deliberately launch each other into the curb, resulting in a pop. So some of these shots were filmed in various parking lots, including at the Acme grocery lot, which is where Phil worked. The shopping cart stunt is probably the most reoccurring CKY stunt in the series, which also featured in Jackass Episode 1, but we'll get into that in a little bit. The CKY edition includes a few more shopping cart slams, some replays, and there's a shot of Deco talking to the police. There is a lot of funny, miscellaneous shit. Okay, so there's this title card that plays for like a quarter of a second about thanking Def Leppard for the song bit they used. They followed a list of people he knows that shit in frivolous locations. There was also just plenty of violence, both playful and just straight up brawling. There was a recording of a cat fight that was happening outside of a venue. Some of these situations I just want to know context for. The tapes are cult classics. However, I still had some problems with it. They're not perfect. I think some of these stunts would be seen as a bunch of juvenile delinquents practicing one-sided humor with no level of thought into the moral and values of the bystanders being affected. It's one thing to do an innocent, harmless prank, but it's another if you're throwing a dead body off of a bridge onto the windshield of a truck driving past. You know, I mean, so some of the CKY pranks were likely to be staged. The dead body bit was probably one of them. Many believe that the truck that hit it was probably Deco's red Ford. I mean, I don't know, man. Even if it is staged, I feel like it just still goes a little bit too far, you know? I digress. There's also that time where Brandon orders a large drink at Wendy's and launches it into the worker's face and then just drives off. I mean, just come on, dude. Just leave the fast food workers alone. It's like the worst job on the planet. They deserve at least a pass. Like, the tape also had some outdated jokes that just kind of make me cringe. Like, Bam spazzing out in front of strangers just comes across as embarrassing. The credits would play All of You, which they have Darren duct taped to a pole, and it looks awesome. The VHS, as I said, featured 20 minutes of additional random content. This included Deco trying to sell dictionaries and encyclopedias, Bam asking a stranger if he knows what shit is, but asks in the context of it being a location. Deco ordered a burger with no meat on it, then complained to the clerk that they didn't put meat on it. There was a really old shot of Bam chugging a Coke, and just old home videotapes of antiquing, high school skits, and moments that are featured throughout Bam's career and also the CKY documentary. Landspeed CKY was seriously ahead of its time. This was before the rise of smartphones where you needed a decent amount of money and skill to use a camera. CKY was just a group of teens getting together doing stupid shit. However, it was created with passion, hard work, and creativity. It was able to stay interesting and relatable to the rebellious attitudes of the skateboarding community. The film really got non-skaters into the world of skateboarding, not to mention having an exclusive soundtrack by a band of the same name. CKY is simply just a must-see. But speaking of CKY, they actually attended Warped Tour in 1999. The crew were commuting in Chad's 1988 Chevy Astro minivan. CKY wasn't on the tour but snuck into playing thanks to Volcom.
We weren't even officially on the tour. We snuck onto the tour because we had our friend's band. Volcom Entertainment was allowed to have a stage on the very early Warped Tour, and we helped build that stage, and we would arrive in our van before the staging would even arrive at these venues, and we just park in an empty field, and then they would build the staging around the van, and what we're sleeping in. And we'd wake up and there'd be half a festival kind of built, and we'd stumble over and give a bullshit hand on building the Volcom stage.
The group only had one VIP pass, so they made copies of it. They got caught for this, and they got booted off the tour. Before I go any further, let's talk about Bam's relationship with Michelle Morrison. Michelle was an elf in CKY's Christmas portion of the tape. Michelle was Bam's high school sweetheart. Well, one of them at least. Her documentation was found throughout the pages of Sirius's Dog Dirt. Bam even marked all the times that they had intercourse. There's not a lot of content out there featuring Michelle that I can find. I was able to find footage of her helping him pee. I don't even know if I can show that.
No. Give it to me.
Ultimately, Michelle cheated on Bam during senior week. Bam was devastated and furious. His anger is expressed on page 51 of Sirius's Dog Dirt, where he stated, "The benefits of drinking is the stories you get from the aftermath. Sober stories and sober songs fucking suck. The last time I drank Jameson, I broke the fucking courthouse window with my bare hand because of a selfish bitch, and I was fed up. I'm selfish too. It hurt real bad, then I went to the hospital, but it's healed now and I'm laughing." And look, there's nothing wrong with being angry like this. I feel like Bam was hurt and frustrated. Bam was a kid at this age, and it's normal for young adults to express anger in high stressful situations. In the perspective of a skater, you are there practicing the same trick for hours while dozens stare at you, and it's pressuring. And honestly, anger is typically a normal response during young adulthood. Personally, I think it becomes an issue when you reach a certain age and that kind of behavior persists. The long-term effects of Michelle's and Bam's relationship can be pointed out on an episode of Radio Bam, where Bam would actually call her out for being verbally abusive towards Bam's weight. The long term of this event is mentioned by Bam during a series of Instagram posts on his rehab experiences. During his first introduction in front of other patients, Bam stated this: "I had my first beer at age 21 while Michelle Morrison cheated on me at senior week. I was in love with her and heartbroken, so I had some beers because it stopped me from crying all day, but didn't like the taste. At age 16, I was already pro with Toy Machine skateboards. At 17, I made a video called CKY, which sold 1 million copies through the word of mouth, and brought my parents a new house and bought myself a red Ferrari Moderna and 2 Audi S4s. Now remember, this whole situation is from Bam's point of view, so it's uncertain, Michelle's perspective on what happened in this relationship, but I don't really know. Now let's move on to talk about a key influencer. Joe Franz. So Joseph Franz was on set for a film called Bikini Bandits. Bam Margera approached Joe after learning of his possession of a 35mm film camera. Bam first mentioned CKY. It turns out Joe heard about the movie during a showing at an art gallery that he worked at. Bam then pitched a proposition. Bam wanted to make a music video for CKY's 96 Bitter Beings. He had $5,000 in his bank account and he wanted to use it all towards making the music video. Film cameras aren't like your average modern day digital camera. Flash memory cards are reusable, more durable, and can hold up to thousands of hours of HD content. But film was kind of different. Film cameras captured much more resolution than digital cameras. At the time, film reels were about $100 for 2 minutes and 45 seconds of footage. Film, however, isn't reusable, so whatever shots that are taken have to be executed perfectly in one single take. Bam reassured that the music video will become an MTV success. Joe was doubtful, but he was still willing. Joe would request a script from Bam. Bam didn't have one. He had it all planned out in his head. Joe asked about permits and insurance. Bam had no idea about that. However, he wanted to do it regardless. They do the music video, and Ryan Dunn got arrested. Bam's success with CKY and skateboarding led to a more disposable income, and with CKY being more established, the shenanigans would only get grander. CKY 2K would have a similar format as CKY 1, a video collage of outrageous stunts and jokes that appeal to the skateboarding counterculture of the early 2000s. CKY 2K was released on May 22nd, 2000. There was a DVD and a VHS version that had very little difference. However, the DVD would get discontinued. One reason being copyright and another being the indecency of a minor. The third has to do with the publisher, Slam, going under, but we'll talk about that at the end. So this is the VHS rip that I have. Starting the movie off with Bam smacking Rab in the head while he's sleeping. You'll notice the change in editing, structure, and just overall quality. CKY2K would take more of a risk with its use of copyrighted music, something BAM could have cared less about. The opening track for the film was Du Hast by Rammstein. Other tracks include songs by Aphex Twin, Malevolent Creation, Anal Cunt, In Flames, Orbital, Eiffel 65, and the most notorious being Hyper Ballad by Bjork. CKY2K would feature the cruise trip to Iceland. This segment includes scenes of them swimming in a hot spring, off-roading, Jess holding on top of the roof of a car at over 100 miles per hour that his mom did not approve of, skating, and plenty of aesthetic shots. So Bjork lives in Iceland, and that's why they used her track. The crew actually visited right outside of Bjork's house.
Bjork's house.
Bjork! She's in there. What's going on? There she is. That's Bjork right there. Where?
So following the use of Bjork's track, the shot would jump cut to Deco taking a shit at 2:45 a.m., which establishes a Jackass-like moment. So this scene features a prank where Deco takes a wad of his shit, sneaks into Ryan's room, and puts the feces on Dunn's face. Naturally, Dunn was pretty pissed about it and considered violence. Bam, being a loyal friend, recommended putting jelly on Deco to get back at him.
Jelly? The guy put shit on my face, and you're talking about jelly.
Dunn ultimately decided to piss on Deco's face at 4 a.m. As primitive and vile as explaining this whole situation, it's pretty fucking funny. The film featured an old clip from 1996 called The Bee, and this is where Deco, Bam, and Rab tied a string around the abdomen of a bumblebee. The bee woke up and was flying as if it was on a leash. I can't believe it.
Pay $9 a day, you can do whatever the hell you want with a rental car.
The rental car was a bit where Bam rented a Chevrolet Cavalier with an extra $9 for that extra insurance. Bam would talk shit about the vehicle, criticizing it for not having a CD player or a cassette input. Bam and others would then recklessly drive and do some comically disorderly shit with it. It resulted in a shattered windshield, tire damage from the constant brake checking, and it was covered in Bam's piss. The funniest part, in my opinion, is when Phil just comes out and just gives off this face of disappointment. The next day, Raekwon set the AM radio on fire, which resulted in the car mildly exploding. Emergency services had to be called to put the fire out.
And the only thing I had to pay was $9 for extra insurance.
The baseball skit is self-explanatory. Deco plays as a coach who is hot-headed and screams at Margera for being shit. Most of the crew were present in this scene, including Naked Dave. Phil would be the opposing coach. He goes into complete Don Vito mode. Bam spent a little bit of his youth playing baseball. He was a shortstop, however he got hit in the head with a ball for being too busy thinking about skateboarding. A Fat Fuck was a stunt done with bubble wrap and plus size 60 pants. This was where Deco and Bam tried to skate, push each other, play in traffic with these giant fat suits. This stunt is also highly remembered as being a part of Jackass Volume 1. Brand's freestyle rap is a rap rib done by Deco in a Chinese accent. It's clever and catchy, but it's definitely offensive for today's standards. That doesn't make it not funny though, because I'm still going back to it. I guess I don't know what that makes me. Bam showcased how to do a switch stance backside tail slide, aka an SSB STS. Deco dressed as a paraplegic military officer eating shit out of a trash can while asking for 50 cents. So Bam and Deco at the end of 1999 participated in the Hookups 1999 tour. This tour would be documented in the 2000 tape, Hookups Destroying America. They gave Bam his own slot 12 minutes in. Bam was sponsored by Nike during this tour. I really enjoyed this tape. It had hilarious anti-cop humor, destruction of property, plenty of skating, but my favorite scene is about 29.5 minutes in, where Tony Hawk is in the movie, and he plays a role as a team member at Pizza Hut. He basically smokes a cigar in one hand, drinks a 40 in the other while fucking skating, while Gin and Juice by Snoop Dogg played in the background. I'm laughing my fucking ass off, dude. So during that tour, there's a clip where the crew lit fireworks inside of a van, and that was featured in CKY2. Just like in CKY1, I think there's just some pranks that go a little bit too far. Deco would talk shit to a fast food worker for miscounting the number of nuggets after he ate one. Deco would just continue to fuck with fast food workers in this.
Shit, I don't even want this soda. Here.
Have a good day.
Hey, you too.
Thanks. Thanks.
It makes you feel better.
It doesn't, but your food does. It's gonna make me shit my pants. I think I'm gonna shit right here. I'm gonna shit right here.
Another bit worth mentioning is the crew kicking footballs into unexpected cars driving past them on the road. And then they film their reactions while Bam pretends to do nothing wrong. When this dude demands an apology, Bam's response is,
You shouldn't be playing football out here in the main road.
It was an accident. What else do you want us to say?
How about an apology?
I just heard this guy say sorry like 60 times.
this scene is more than likely to be a staged bit. The two people that come up to Bam and confront him look and sound just like Matt Cole and Bam's Aunt Boof. Plus, the two would had to have signed a release form for the film because we can see their faces.
I didn't see there was cars there. Me have ADD. Sorry. Forget all that. What the fuck is ADD? What are you speaking Greeks?
So I saw this conspiracy in an old forum post from 2003. However, I want to debunk these conspiracy theories because these moments are way too far in between. Most of the pranks and stunts are completely real. Like, Bam jumping off of a building into a hotel pool is credible enough for me. Even when cameras are turned off, the CKY crew are doing ridiculous shit like this to each other.
But the stuff that you saw, especially on our CKY movies, no, that's pretty much how we lived.
Yeah.
Either there was a camera there or there wasn't. When there was a camera there, it was called CKY.
Yeah, yeah.
When there wasn't, it was just called, like, Wednesday.
Also displayed was the filming of a movie by Steve Barra titled 17 Sips. The movie premiered at the Slamdance Film Festival in 2000. Reports said it was pretty awful, and Steve Barra won't release it anytime soon. Bam was listed in the cast as Otto. The movie was never distributed and is considered lost media. But following that, for the VHS release, there was the video after the video. This is where all the extras for the film are located, and I think the extras are a lot more compact than the original. However, I'm not going to go into details this time. I need to go on. I need to move on, guys. It features the time Bam got Ryan G to fucking light his chest hair on fire, so I want to at least mention that. But anyway, CKY2K would be the most controversial in the series. I believe this for two reasons. One was due to copyright, and the second was due to the indecency of a minor.
There was, her music was in there in that Iceland part. Slam Distribution, who was distributing our DVDs at that point, they went out of business, and so they were basically a huge warehouse full of DVDs. And Phil went over, Bam's dad, Phil went over and got all these. So he literally had like a garage full of DVDs. And he's like, hey, Rabbit, you can sell these if you want. I was like, I don't know. I mean,
some of this music featured in the early CKY films are put in the movie without consent from the original artist. Granted, this was during a period where the film had such a niche audience, and Bam probably didn't care about copyright law at the time. But during an interview in regards to him being sued, he stated this: "We'd go to some park or building to skate ledges or ollie off the stairs. I wasn't too liked by the police, but I didn't really have anything to lose. My aunt gave me an '89 Buick Regal, so whenever anybody said, dude, you're gonna get sued one day doing this, I'd say, yeah, what are they gonna sue me for? My Buick Regal that my aunt gave me? I don't care." But this wasn't the only issue. Following the credits of CKY2K, there is a segment titled, "This is what happens when you tell Bam you'll do anything to be in CKY," which features a shot inside our restaurant with the camera pointing towards the exit. I'm not showing you this footage right now. I'm stopping at this one frame, which is already a bad sign. Bam walks in, and then as soon as the door closes, a 15-year-old high school student flashes himself on camera. The parents would sue Margera and the distributor, which resulted in the footage being excluded in the DVD release, even though it shouldn't even be in any of the releases. Regardless of Bam's age or the consent of a 15-year-old, it's just common knowledge that a minor cannot present nudity on any content like this. It's fucking illegal, dude. A combination of copyright claims, this controversial scene, and lastly, Slam Distribution going under resulted in CKY2K's DVD release to be discontinued. However, despite this controversy, CKY2K was the $1 million tape. It is well received by the CKY community, and it assisted Bam in getting his spot in Jackass. Personally, this was my favorite out of the four. I greatly enjoyed CKY2K. It felt fun, more established than the original. The editing felt more fluent and very creative. Transitioning was improved, and the variety of content was rather stimulating. I have to say the music segments in this is really solid. I feel the shots are better synced with the audio. The copyrighted music honestly honestly added to the experience of the film, what can I say? Making it feel rich in nostalgia. I get that vibe of dudes being dudes, you know? You get a good idea of how active Bam's life really was during this period. My only complaint was that I wish I saw more Chris Rapp, but trust me, he's coming back in CKY3. CKY would actually attend Warped Tour 2000.
That time it was because one of the amphitheaters that the Warped Tour was being held at needed to tax everyone 35% extra on merch, so everybody would have had to raise the merch prices a whole lot and nobody would have bought anything. Wrong of our idea at the time. We made a petition, fuck the Warped Tour, at the Warped Tour. Yeah. And we had people coming up to sign this massive petition, and it got ripped down and destroyed, and we got like kicked out, like, you know, with a foot, you know, that day.
Bam was a part of Tony Hawk's gigantic skate park tour in 2000.
Bam Margera, professional skateboarder. I'm here to cause a ruckus on the trip and annoy strangers. Bam! I gotta go.
The tour was an American tour during the summer of 2000. The tour was documented by ESPN and can be found on YouTube. Besides skateboarding, they did other activities. One example, they went to a water park where they got away with doing so much crazy shit.
Everybody's up, running around at the top, like, just doing who knows what. Turn around, and I see Ellis, like, coming at me with this huge raft, and then it just hits my foot and pops me right in the nose. It hurt real bad.
This would be the tour where he jumped off of a 6-story balcony into a hotel pool.
I was a little nervous to watch him do it, but I knew that he's done stuff like that before. The thing that amazed me is once he hit, I mean, his head barely went underwater and he was up. He was fine.
But he was really able to shine his potential skating at FDR on episode 5.
You realize the Philly Park is under I-95 through Philly. We have to stop.
You don't get it! See, I've won. You don't matter. In fact, in about 90 seconds, you won't even be matter.
Jumping a few years back, in 1996, Big Brother was touring the East Coast and stopped at Love Park, where they bumped into Bam and his dad Phil. The two parties would have no idea that in 4 years, they would be making the hottest show on MTV. Back in 1992, before there was a Jackass, there was Big Brother Magazine, a raunchy skateboarding publication that would be the forerunner of Jackass. Big Brother was a magazine that stood out from the two main skateboarding publications out at the time, that being Transworld and Thrasher. Big Brother was different, because to Big Brother, nothing was taboo. Because of this, the magazine would be targeted by the media and highly concerned parents.
Brother has upset a number of local parents because mixed in with skateboard articles and stories of graphic sex is an article that details how to kill yourself.
And we thought that was awesome.
Dude, I highly recommend Dumb, the Story of Big Brother, that documentary on Hulu. It's very informative. It's where I got most of my sources, and there's a lot of really old school footage featured on it.
Big Brother is aimed at little brother, and that's what we're against. I don't care if 18 years and above read this garbage, do whatever they want with it, but not at my children, not at any child.
For now, let's branch away from the magazine itself. I want to talk about the Big Brother tapes. Eventually, Jeff Tremaine wanted to create Big Brother tapes, and there were 4 Big Brother films which were created between 1996 and 2002. The first of the Big Brother films to come out was Shit in 1996, which introduced us to the likes of Chris Pontius, a charismatic, free-spirit animal enthusiast who would be known for his stunts that involve him wearing a G-string, such as Party Boy.
That's my mommy!
I don't think there's a very good chance I'll live, to tell you the truth. I lack the confidence, skill, the listening ability.
Pontius was interviewed by Big Brother and fit perfectly well with the zine's style of humor. He started doing articles and opening fan mail for the magazine. During an interview, Chris Pontius stated, "In the 8th or 9th edition, I was interviewed in Big Brother, and it was pretty wild. I was nude, and I think I wasn't even 18, so that was naughty. It was obvious I should write for the magazine. It took in the misfits of the skateboarding world." Wee Man, a pro skateboarder known for his small size and free-spirited attitude. He met photo editor Rick Kozik during a photo shoot, and became a member of the cast. Wee Man worked for Big Brother as a subscription manager. Big Brother would follow up the series with number 2 in 1998. This would feature stuntman and aspiring actor Johnny Knoxville.
Well, I'm Johnny Knoxville, United States of America, and I'll be doing a little article on self-defense equipment.
Knoxville, whose birth name was Philip John Clapp, moved from Tennessee to Los Angeles in the late 80s, making a living doing commercials for ESPN, Mountain Dew, and Bud Light.
That's a classic.
Knoxville was expecting his first child and needed cash fast. Knoxville had an idea for an article where he wanted to test different types of self-defense equipment. He would shoot taser darts into him, pepper spray himself, and finally, shoot himself in the chest with a .38. Nobody wanted to take the story. The only publisher that would was Big Brother Magazine. And about 17 minutes in, you see the death-defying stunt. The whole stunt was by far the tensest I've seen in this project so far. The face of fear in Knoxville gave this strong vibe of death. It was so intense that nobody naturally wanted to hold the camera. So, local King Loomis had to do it. Knoxville fired the gun, and he didn't die. And they ran like hell.
Boom.
1999 would be the release of the third tape, known as Boob, which featured a handful of Johnny Knoxville stunts. However, this film would spotlight another Jackass member, Steve-O.
Yeah, he found us. We were on tour with Duff's, and when he caught wind of that, like, he just went off.
I wanted to be a skateboarder and in skateboard media, but I just wasn't that good at skateboarding, so I just said, okay, screw the skateboarding, I'm gonna provide the comic relief.
Steve-O's relationship with Big Brother magazine began in 1997. He was featured on a sidebar article about him catching his face on fire. This was during Big Brother's tour through Albuquerque with a shoe company called Duff's. Steve-O is known for having a series of vices throughout his early career.
It was when I got caught on the roof of the 12-story dorm building I lived in that they kicked me out of it. That point on, I was homeless, just sleeping on people's floors and getting super fucked up.
As some of you guys probably know, Steve-O had a very nasty drug habit with a constant need of being in the spotlight. Steve-O was encouraged to satisfy his needs for attention by attending clown college. He graduated from Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. Clown college was where Steve-O learned how to do tricks such as blowing fireballs, eating glass, performing flips, and riding unicycles. Steve-O's feature in Boob was during Big Brother's tour through Florida. It included stunts of him doing a backflip off of a bridge, a classic video of him drinking bong water, and doing a flip off of a hotel roof while shooting a fireball. Talking about this stunt specifically, you could imagine how dangerous this is. You would think this has a high risk and chance of it backfiring.
Light his hair on fire and have Markovich blow a fireball off his head.
And it did. Let's go back to talking about the Duff's tour. The fire got all over his face and hand, and despite this, Steve-O still went for the flip while he was coated in fire. The director's commentary of Steve-O's Don't Try This at Home reveals that this was the stunt that got Steve-O accepted into Jackass. Steve-O's story is well documented through his book Professional Idiot, his podcast Steve-O's Wild Ride, and not to mention his home videotapes that he made. Those are also worth checking out.
Basically, it's just all in the name of humor. That's what we're doing, and I think it's very obvious.
But Tremaine couldn't defend the publication of sexually explicit material in a magazine whose readers are kids. There is some very sexually explicit stuff in there.
Yeah, there is.
Pornographic. I mean, I think you'd have to label it that way.
Well, you can label it, you know. Like I said, I didn't really want to even go on camera, so.
While it did have a strong following, the magazine's content was developing an even stronger resistance. Commercial retail pulled Big Brother off the shelves, or moved into the adult area of the stores. Advertisers began to pull their ads from the magazine. It got to a point where Big Brother was in the red and was about to go out of business, leading it to be up for sale. Big Brother got sold by Larry Flynt, a successful publisher and free speech advocate for dozens of magazines. Larry Flynt had a very interesting controversial history that I will not get into in this video. However, I will mention that LFP was a corporate environment. Stricter guidelines such as genitalia being removed was implemented on the magazine. Despite media outrage, the magazine released a controversial kids edition. They also swapped the subscriptions of the porn mag Taboo and Big Brother magazines, which according to Wee Man was supposed to be a publicity stunt.
I was on that cover.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so, but yeah, I was a subscription guy and it got messed up all the time, but I was putting them in vanilla envelopes, envelopes, and putting the sticker on, stamping them and shipping them off. And Dave Carney took it over and he was the one who said, let's do the Pro Spotlight, but we're also doing the Jackass stuff.
Yeah.
So it was just this weird change, and it was the first magazine out And I think Larry Flynt said, let's do a little publicity stunt and do the subscription change.
Actually, that's the only part about all of this that isn't shocking, because the publisher of Big Brother Skateboarding is self-proclaimed pornographer Larry Flynt. I think that some of the things in here just seem like they're trying to break down children's inhibitions by asking children, for example, do you know what a scrotum is? Do you have pubic hair yet? Would you have sex with your mother?
Well, that's kind of kinky, you know.
LFP would require Big Brother to go monthly, leading to more stress on the brand. Tremaine was confident enough to make all this content into a TV series.
Arsenal of shitbags. So I called Knoxville. Hey, let's partner up and try to make a TV show out of this.
I said, okay.
Jeff knew very little about the entertainment industry, leading to the aid of Spike Jonze. They then created the Jackass pilot. This pilot would consist of a combination of old footage from previous CKY movies and Big Brother film, mixed in with some new content. I'm of course referring to the controversial Jackass convict scene. So for the Jackass pilot, there was an unaired bit where Knoxville dressed up in a convict uniform with handcuffs on. He then enters a True Value hardware store. He goes up to the register and he asks for the location of a hacksaw.
I need a hacksaw.
You need a hacksaw?
Yeah.
And Knoxville's acting potential really showed in this bit, as he sounded completely serious, a little bit too serious. The shop had to close down and they called the cops on him. And when they arrived, Knoxville had to lay down flat on the ground and tell the officers that they were filming. It turns out that the officer forgot to put the car into park, and the car drove into a pole, which was kind of funny. Knoxville was questioned by the police, and they were not too happy about the idea of them filming.
Because we're filming.
You're filming?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you filming?
And this was during a period before they even had permits to film. So Spike Jonze bailed, leaving Knoxville and production coordinator Veena Mehta to get arrested that day, being charged with trespassing. In a video interview with Jenkin Magazine, Tremaine recalled that this almost killed the MTV deal. But anyway, back to the video. They sent pitches to Comedy Central, HBO, and MTV. Stunts sporadically would be recorded from 1998 to 2000, until finally being funded by MTV to produce the pilot. As a result, Tremaine left Big Brother to make this launch happen. Sadly, Big Brother magazine did not last, releasing its final publication in 2004.
To BAM's credit, like when I started, it was all like stunts. And then I saw a CKY video and they were like doing pranks. I'm like, oh, I should start doing pranks.
Jackass is best known as a reality slapstick comedy that aired at the beginning of the millennium. Members of the cast would put themselves in exaggerated, vulgar, hijink-like situations that included the use of stunts, pranks, and bumps performed on each other or the public. The cast of Jackass has 9 main individuals. However, this could stretch to as far as the inclusion of the producers, the CKY crew members, supporting crew, and other reoccurring characters. This felt so natural that the first volume of Jackass didn't feel like a combination of pre-existing footage. However, Tremaine, Kozik, and Knoxville flew to Portland to film the likes of Danger Aaron and Dave England, and then to Westchester where they filmed the CKY crew doing shopping cart stunts. Rab even mentioned on his podcast that upon seeing them for the first time, he stood confused, like, who the hell are these old guys?
But it was funny because I was telling Tremaine, like, because he's like 10 years older than me, I think, and when he got there, I was like 19 or something. Yep. I'm looking at this dude, I said to Bam, like, who's this old fucking dude? You know, like...
Let me mention the last 3 members of the Jackass crew. Dave England was a pro snowboarder who was the main editor of a magazine called Blunt, which was a sister magazine to Big Brother.
Then he started DC Shoes, and every time I'd go visit
what
him,
the fuck?
he'd have a bigger
Ken
warehouse.
Block did all that?
Yeah, him and Damon Way, Danny Way's brother.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he was friends with Rocco, and then they were doing Big Brother magazine. So he's like, I want to do a snowboard magazine like that. So he started Blunt Snowboard Magazine.
Yeah.
And then he was too busy with all the clothing companies, so I ended up being the editor of it. Then Larry Flynt, you know, bought, so weird, he bought, you know, Blunt and Big Brother magazine. And then so it turned out that, you know, I was working in an office next door to Tremaine and in those dudes, as we say.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's how I met them, and then I would help them do little silly bits for the Big Brother videos.
England would be known for his segments involving feces and also for only having one nut. Dave England also is known for having an alter ego named Darth that comes out when he's drunk, and you don't want Darth to come out. Aaron McGehee was a retired snowboarder and inspiring daredevil, much like his longtime friend Dave England. Danger Aaron grew up in a conservative religious family that ran a mortuary, thus having an early exposure to death.
While I was snowboarding up in Oregon, Dave had moved up there. I'm from Oregon. We were filming stuff up there, just funny, whatever, gags, snowboarding stuff, and had written a couple ideas. And so they flew up there to film the pilot with Dave and myself.
And
because the idea that I had turned in, they were just like, oh, what? That's crazy.
And this was, you did a pogo stick right onto a skateboard.
Well, yeah, I was trying to basically become the first pogo skater.
Lastly, I want to mention Preston Lacey, an overweight, short-tempered actor usually put into scenes in contrast with Wee Man. Prior to Jackass, Preston was a truck driver in Missouri before moving to California, where he took up acting. He was in commercials, and he was also known for being on The Tonight Show.
For extra money, when I first moved to California, I hauled furniture and used to do odd jobs and stuff, and I'd pick up trucks.
So you didn't meet Knoxville on a audition?
No, I met him through Beautiful Jason, the guy who shot him with the taser. Yeah, that's who I met.
Preston also wrote most of his stunts. My favorite Preston bit was the eggnog drinking contest. Can't show much of that one, but Preston's staple tantrum made the bit so much funnier. Jackass was filmed on consumer-level Sony PD-150s, a flip-screen handycam that used mini DV tapes as storage. The DV tapes were always at risk of being destroyed during certain stunts. The quality of footage was far from the mint quality that television programming was known for, but it still got the job done. I mean, the camera's mobility would benefit the production team, and I mean, after all, the team had a background in magazine production and had far less video experience at the time, so it was more convenient to use these handycams. Also, the camera's small stature made blending into the crowd much easier. The interview with Inverse.com revealed the production crew would get creative with hiding the camera by cutting holes in backpacks or shot at waist height, or even wandered around the street corners looking really stiff and awkward. However, these hidden cameras would sometimes backfire. For example, during the poo-poo platter prank with Johnny Knoxville. According to Rick Kozik, we were shooting in a diner where Knoxville had ordered breakfast and then taken off the sausage and put poop on there instead, so he could send it back saying that there's something wrong with my food. I had this weird contraption on my backpack and my glasses have the camera, and for some reason, it didn't record. It's the most insane heated battle in that restaurant, and I walk out so stressed and I didn't even get any of it. We had to shoot it multiple times because of the fuck-ups, with multiple poops. This would give Jackass, and more specifically Jeff Tremaine, the reputation of taking multiple shots during stunts and pranks that really should have just been a one-and-done thing. But Tremaine was determined to get that perfect shot. Another benefit to the small, one-handed design of the PD-150 was the ability to protect one's nuts from a sudden attack. The Jackass crew would continue their antics both on and off camera. The crew, especially Knoxville, would engage in sudden nut shots and pranks on each other and at any point in time. These wild shenanigans would not be limited to the crew. According to Lance Bangs, there was an incident where a Man's Culture magazine reporter arrived in Florida, and it winded up with him having a U-shaped bike lock attached to him. This is what made Jackass interesting to me, and I mean, the amount of fun that these guys are having throughout the entire recording process really does leak onto the final product. The idea that the show was filmed the most unprofessional way possible on a huge media platform really did make it stand out from the usual corporate model found on the other shows of the network. So Jackass aired on October 1st, 2000, the same programming block that featured WWF Sunday Night Heat, Celebrity Deathmatch, and Senseless Acts of Video. Jackass would be a 22-minute show airing at 9 p.m. The show became successful overnight, being viewed by over 2.4 million on its debut. The show lasted for 3 seasons, labeled as volumes. A quote from the Jackass Where Are They Now article, Bam stated, "Like a light switch, overnight, I was the most popular kid in school. It was so fake to me that I couldn't take it anymore, so I left. Everybody who wouldn't even give me the time of day, now they want to be my best friend." This quote conflicts with Bam's record of dropping out in 10th grade, several years before this. However, it still seems valid to the idea that Bam became the most popular of his peers just simply overnight. Bam's first televised bit was the clip where he drove into a porta potty on a bike in CKY2. We would also see a clip of Jess riding a sled tied to the bumper of a car. Jess actually suffered from serious road rash trying to bail this sled. The shopping cart stunts was a combination of old and new footage. Chris Rabb ended up getting hospitalized during the filming of these stunts. Fat Fuck would also make a reappearance, featuring Bam and Deco wearing those fat suits that we talked about earlier. How to Rob a House and Santa vs. Chicken bits were also featured in Jackass's pilot. BMX Joust is rather self-explanatory. So Bam originally detested this stunt because he had a fear of being poked. Bam and Deco would basically joust each other on children's bikes. The two did joust in front of a cop and got ticketed, and it was revealed on the Jackass commentary that the bike they used got stolen by the end of the filming for just being simply left out and forgotten.
I'm Bam Margera, and I feel like kicking my dad's ass all day today.
Bam kicked his dad's ass all day on fucking episode 3. He slapped him up spontaneously, randomly throughout the day, during very inconvenient times, especially when he was busy while he was on the phone. Bam launched himself onto Phil, picked up the phone and stated, "We'll have to call you back," and then hung up. Then he front flip kicked Phil right in the face. Episode 4 would feature a bit where Bam woke Jess up by playing the guitar loudly, then repeatedly punched him in the face. It was revealed that the track Bam played was dubbed over due to the lack of clearance on the original. The next shot would be Bam saying, "Sorry dude, I got a bit too carried away on that guitar solo," and we would just see a huge fucking dent on Jess's head. We would also see the heavy metal alarm clock bit. This was where Bam blasted music at 1:52 a.m. to wake up his parents. So Ryan Dunn's features in Jackass was very memorable and notable. There was a flop bit where they tried to launch him with a contraption that they made out of duct tape and bungee cord. Episode 8's land skiing bit was when Ryan skied down an asphalt hill. Deco, who designed the skates, decided to throw a log in front of Dunn as he descended, and he ended up landing in a poison ivy bush.
Oh, that's all poison ivy. Look at it.
Is it for real? I'm not helping him.
Karma would actually get back at Bam as he skated down the ramp, hit Ryan's skis, and landed on his fucking head. Land skiing would be repeated, this time down a grassy decline, up a ramp, and into a tree. Dunn ended up getting a concussion for this bit. After the stunt, we would get a funny shot of Bam screaming,
I'm coming, buddy, I'm a doctor!
Poo diving was what took the cake in Volume 1. Dunn swam in sewage. The bit was originally intended for Rab, but he backed out. This was considered the day when Jeff Tremaine met Dunn for the first time. Dunn had to spend that night eating outside and got sick following this. He didn't even shower. He just went to the bar to pick up chicks. Chris Rabb would get some screen time during Jackass, doing a bit where he mowed the lawn naked. Bam's exposure of his hijinks was now being broadcast nationwide. By the end of the second episode, Jackass became the highest viewed show on MTV, and it was only increasing in popularity. This success of the first volume of Jackass shocked members of the cast, including Weaveman and Dave England, who believed the show wouldn't last.
Suddenly, we're making a TV show. I thought it was gonna be on once in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And ended up being somehow popular. I was a naysayer.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I was that way too. Because people would be like, "Oh, you're gonna quit college and do this?" I'm like, "This is gonna be over in 20 minutes."
Oh,
what do you mean? Like, I felt as soon as the pilot played, it was like, "Well, that was cool."
Or that sucked.
Yeah.
I didn't think anyone wanted to see our stupid shit.
Yeah.
Literally.
I know. Yeah.
They did.
Much like Big Brother magazine, the controversial, crude stupidity of the cast sparked outrage in the major media and American politics. It's safe to say that Jackass pushed the bar of what was and wasn't appropriate for television, leading to numerous disclaimers and warning about the dangers that some of these stunts projected. This was considered not enough to prevent people from copying the antics of the cast. Nearly 2 weeks before the debut of season 2, Jackass was under fire by Senator Joseph Lieberman. I vaguely talked about Joseph Lieberman in my Ryan Dunn video. Lieberman was the Democratic senator of Connecticut. He called on MTV to cancel or reform the show, where he stated, "Primary responsibility falls on the parents, but they need your help in doing that job, which is growing increasingly more difficult in a 500-channel universe. Ideally, I would encourage you to either cancel the exploitative and degrading show or eliminate the stunts that could be dangerous if imitated by children." Lieberman's response to having the disclaimers present in the episodes were that the general disclaimer which airs at the beginning and end of each episode is self-mocking and trivially
memorializes the seriousness of the stunt's potential consequences, which raises real questions about its effectiveness as a deterrent. Lieberman urged MTV to air the show at a later time and to include a more explicit, straightforward warning about the potential consequences of each stunt. Lieberman's inspiration for this letter was due to a series of copycat incidents that led to the injuries of teenagers and children. Most talked about is the incident of 13-year-old Jason Lind, where he and several of his friends reenacted the stunt Human Barbecue. The stunt where Knoxville wore a meat suit and sat on an open fire to cook the meat. Instead of wearing any protective flame retardant clothing, Jason just doused himself in kerosene and lit himself on fire. Jason suffered from serious burns on his leg and was hospitalized for it. This fiasco would have a long-term effect on the show as a whole. MTV at first defended Jackass, however they would eventually cave to Lieberman's demands and canceling all of the airings of the show before 10 p.m. But they would also refuse to air repeats of certain episodes, such as Human Omelet or The Vomlet. This sparked outrage in the cast and the production of the show. Not only did it seem unfair since kids aren't supposed to be viewing the show in the first place, but is also rude to the Jackass crew. The stunts they perform do a toll on their body, and just for it to not be shown on the air makes it feel pointless. Jackass Volume 2 would air from February to April of 2001. Despite being featured and casted in the same show, the Big Brother crew and the CKY crew didn't get together for a stunt until Volume 2.
I think it's interesting because people believe that we were all just like bros forever, when in fact we were not even all in the same place until the show was already a hit and we were filming the second season.
The two met at a hotel, and this hotel would be remembered as Hotel Jackass. The hotel would pardon the crew for stunts they performed, including Volume 2's Episode 2's The Treadmill. This was a bit where the CKY crew improv'd on a treadmill until it broke. It was also the hotel where Preston did the BDSM bit. It was revealed in the Jackass commentary that Bam originally thought Dave England's segments weren't funny and easily could be one-upped. He mentioned this right to England's face at the time. Bam's first appearance in the second volume of Jackass was a bit titled Hockey Fight, where Bam and Deco invaded a hockey game and started beating the living shit out of each other, repeating the same thing but in a restaurant. He also did the plunger wake up on Phil during this. Snake River BMX, aka the Snake River Launch, would feature Ryan Dunn trying to bike off of a ramp into a sewage runoff out in the bitter cold. Knoxville was actually present for this bit. Dunn did get some solid air, however this bit was confronted and ended abruptly by the cops. Episode 3 had a classic moment of Bam messing with Phil. Since Phil mows the lawn every Wednesday, Bam decided to dig a hole in front of their yard, then cover the hole with leaves. So when Phil mows over it, he falls in and everyone laughs. This is also speculated to be fake due to the part of the lawn that Phil mows over looks to not need to be cut. I'm not sure if I believe that theory. This episode was actually named after a bit called The Loop. It's where professionals Matt Hoffman and Tony Hawk skated down a loop-de-loop. Bam would attempt the loop a few times, however he failed and he ate shits every time. He eventually stopped that day. The loop is just extremely dangerous and unpredictable. It actually led to Tony Hawk smashing his pelvis following an attempt during the filming of Wild Boys. This won't be the last time Bam would attempt the loop though, but we'll talk about that later. Episode 4 had a bit titled Bucket Cars, where Deco, Bam, Knoxville, and Dunn rode a vehicle made out of a steel tray commonly found on wheelbarrows with 4 swivel caster wheels bolted underneath them. This would be pushed downhill and conflict ensued as they attempted to drift into ditches and jumping off ramps, all while Disengage the Simulator played in the background. Bam actually would botch this stunt. He was located in the front of the cart unsecured, and after the cart went into the air, Bam flew higher than the cart, resulting in him landing and breaking his tailbone on impact.
The tailbone is seriously broken. I'm not even kidding.
They later had shots of his X-ray where they all laughed at his dick. Alright, so episode 5, we see a funny slapstick bit where they loosen the screws in Phil's chair so that when he sits, he just falls. Lastly, episode 6 had stilt boxing with Ryan Dunn and Steve-O. It's not necessarily Bam related, but it's fun to watch and I'm talking about it right now. They also had a bit where Johnny and Brandon take Bam back to a mental institution. The two chase Bam as he makes it his escape. Episode 7 had a bit where fucking Ryan gets covered in sardines. Episode 8 actually had Bam doing a nasty flip sliding down a hill. There's also the human handrail where Brandon and Ryan are dressed in yellow as they confront a rail for Bam to skate on. So Jackass Volume 3 aired through June to August of 2001. They then showed off the Gumball Rally Special in 2002. I found Volume 3 to be much darker than the first two volumes. As mentioned, the series was bombarded with regulations by MTV, being forced to not feature certain stunts or rework them entirely. I think this was an incentive of retaliation by the group. Jackass would end up doing some fucked up pranks, okay? Like kidnapping Brad Pitt in front of a group of strangers, or mimicking a murder scene in front of an oblivious power washer. This sort of tone just feels more fucked up than the earlier seasons. We would also see a lot more Deco, Rab, and Dunn scenes in Volume 3, like the wood chipper bit, you know, where Dunn was pelted by some random shit thrown to a wood chipper, or office chairs, which featured, you know, Ryan, Deco, and Bam skating down verts and banks in office chairs. Bam even rode a desk with a computer attached. Skunk car was kind of fucked up. The crew took a roadkill skunk and placed it on an RC car as they drove it around the city.
There's a health issue involved, and I really think that instead of getting off, because I mean that's what you're doing. Yeah. I mean I'm looking at your pants and you've got an enormous hard on.
There's also the bit where Dunn and Deco would ride a tube downhill. Episode 2, they had fun with a hot dog costume. You know, they took turns fucking around in the hot dog suit. And my favorite part had to be when fucking Rake would scream, "I hate mustard," and tackled Rab while he was in the suit. Episode 8, Rab would be tarred and feathered to represent a duck, only to get shot by a paintball gun. Bam also rode a hamster wheel of skateboards that looked really fucking sick. The best bit had to be the bounty hunter on the opening of Episode 2, Volume 3. Deco played the hunter and Bam was the bounty. Deco tells a stranger to watch Bam as he goes inside a store. Bam then tries to escape from the cuffs and demands help. The cops then arrive and arrest the two for impersonating an officer and disturbing the peace, which they were saying it was a felony. However, it was all a prank as the cop introduces the show. In 2009, they released Jackass Lost Tapes, a collection of bonus footage from the filming of the first 3 volumes.
I'm with Rab himself, and he's gonna be biking his naked ass down the middle of High Street.
Oh, another segment including a pie eating contest where Bam is the judge. Don Vito, Phil, Dunn, and Deco eating a series of pies going against one another. Phil won with 5 pies. On August 14th, 2001, it was announced that Johnny Knoxville would be quitting the show, stating in the article that he wanted to focus on his movie career. Knoxville would score a role in 2002's Big Trouble, followed by Men in Black 2. However, I think the stress of the MTV regulations had to have played a role as well. What was once allowed on MTV one week would be barred the next. The more restrictions the crew had, the less fun they had on the show. It became too stressful for the crew to even continue. It wasn't worth getting injured every episode to have the episodes not be shown. Also open to jumping ship was Bam and his friends. The crew, especially Deco, hated the corporate influences of MTV, and it came to a point where the money and injury was not worth the lack of artistic freedom. However, MTV money would later recenter Bam's life in future projects. According to ABC News, MTV was caught off guard by Knoxville's departure and didn't have a comment at press time. Jackass sparked years of entertainment beyond television, inspiring a whole generation of content creators, concurrently existing during the rise of popularity of the Dudesons and later shows like Punk'd and Dirty Sanchez. Some argue that if Jackass would have happened in 2010, it wouldn't have been as popular. It came at the perfect time to influence the millennial generation's style of dark humor. But what I find fascinating is that it became irrefutable for the media and legal to catch up with the amount of inappropriate content on the internet. Jackass was a pioneer of that kind of content, facing obstacles of a resisting society that most people on the internet don't face. On second thought, thinking about YouTube guidelines, I think we're starting to go full circle. As for Bam, being a part of Jackass set his career in full gear. If it wasn't for his diligence, the chances of his fame would have been much lower. Bam took this momentum by storm, and during the airings of Jackass, Bam would capitalize the fame with another CKY film, CKY 3 in February of 2001. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I forgot to talk about 411's issue 35, A Day in the Life with Bam Margera.
Today, I'm gonna make everybody's day hell.
If you guys haven't noticed yet, Bam doesn't treat his parents too kindly in front of the camera. Despite Phil and April's supportive attitudes, Bam always reinforces that he is in control as top dog.
You're ruining it.
No, first, I'm sorry, but you always tell me I'm ruining it, but you never help me around here, not even a little bit.
Because a day in the life doesn't involve helping Mom.
Wait, I know. Well, we know that.
Shenanigans began and skating ensued.
We're making this video and it just looks cool when we're moving. No problem. Alright, cool.
And Bam warming up and skating at FDR. Alright guys, now let's jump back to 2001. 2001 was looking to be an extraordinary year for Bam. His wealth and popularity skyrocketed with the help of Jackass the TV series, and of course in combination with his determination with skating. During this period, I've noticed that Bam begins to change the way he presents himself. In the first volume of Jackass, we saw Bam wearing a $7 blazer. However, around this time, Bam began to wear the likes of top hats, sunglasses, scarves, black clothing, and the occasional eyeshadow. According to Jen Revell, Bam's ex-girlfriend we'll talk about much later, she coined the term as rock flare. This look can be seen on Bam's website, bammargera.com, with only one M. The Wayback Machine has us covered with a whole rabbit hole of CKY and Jackass content, including URLs for Ryan Dunn, CKY, Rake Yan, Phil Margera, and much more. Bam's website would feature emo photos of himself while utilizing a dark color palette. Located on the right, we have different links featuring bios, accessories, stills, and Bam's usual unkept schedule. And here is where we're also exposed to Bam's use of the heartogram. Alright, so the heartogram can be seen on Bam throughout the filming of Jackass the TV series, and it also becomes much more apparent in CKY3. So what is it? Well, Bam idolized Ville Valo. He was the frontman of a Finnish goth band called HIM, H-I-M with capital letters. Quoting Ville Valo's 2010 book, Bam says that he originally got into HIM after reading Ville's comments on the songs Razorblade Romance on the band's website. The band started to interest him, and it was because of him that Bam became addicted to using the internet. Bam came to see a couple of our gigs in Europe, but at first we didn't know anything about the guy, Ville says. In London we were introduced to each other, and after that we had hung out together more than once. A cool, easygoing guy, not at all stuck up, although he does drink a lot of booze. I want to give a huge shout out to Jackass Watcher over on Discord for providing me this particular source. It actually really helped a lot. He is currently managing a Jackass fan Discord for old Jackass media. If any of you guys are interested, the link will be in the description. It's really good, a bunch of good guys there, so check it out. Let's go back to talking about the heartogram. So the heartogram was designed by Ville in 1996 at the age of 20. Ville described the design in a form of a poem, as he said it was a combination of heart and pentagram, the soft and the had, the male and the female, the yin and the yang, which for me is important. I was in my tiny rented flat and I was waiting for my friends to come over with beer so we could celebrate me turning into a man. I was drawing stuff for no particular reason, just doodling. I was just trying to figure out something cool, so basically I was drawing for hours, waiting for the beer to arrive, and then I just got it. I had this sort of hexagram, and then suddenly I had this very cool image on the page before me. I wasn't thinking of it consciously, but it was the combination of heart and pentagram. It's safe to say that Bam adored the heartogram design. Some could even say he was borderline obsessed with both that and Ville Valo himself, and he even got it tattooed. Ville Valo actually responded to Bam having a tattoo, and here's what his response was. Bam was worried that I would feel that he had stolen my tattoos. Ville Valo laughed. But the thing is that a tattoo isn't mine or but ours. It's not a question of stealing but of sharing. If someone wants to get the same tattoo that I have, that's okay. After all, Bam is a good guy. He's just a huge fan of the band. Of course he's insane, but in a good way. So as I said, Bam was so borderline obsessed with him and Ville Valo that they ended up drinking together, and one night Bam said that if Ville wanted his girlfriend Jen and get intimate with her, that would be very much okay, because anyone that actually would turn down sex from Ville Valo is an idiot. Digging on the Wayback Machine, I was able to find this interview with Bam and Chris Aspate. And in the interview, Bam held skateboarding strongly and had no plans on giving it up, despite Jackass taking up much of his time. I kinda found it funny how Hoof asked if Bam was gonna pull some Jason Lee type shit, sort of implying that he was just gonna abandon skateboarding for TV media. There's a few other things I found interesting, like Bam mentions the purchase of a $400,000 home for his family in Glen Mills, 27 miles west of Philly. Bam mentioned in the interview that after he visited New York, he met up with the singer of Pink at a party, and she was ecstatic, and apparently she used to skate, and the two used to skate at Cheapskates back in the day. Bam also mentions that he gets bombarded with phone calls and emails, and he actively tries to answer and get back to them when he can. And I'm actually going to quote Bam from the interview in this, where he says, "I'm not writing back, and meanwhile I'm trying to answer 50 letters and I suck at typing, so it's frustrating. It's like they think I'm not doing anything on my end. Meanwhile I hear of IMs of people I don't know. One Sunday, I took 7 hours of my day to write some people back through regular mail. I was going to Finland or some shit the next day, so I wrote as many letters as I could saying sorry for the short note, but I'm going away and blah blah blah. Then I threw in some pictures and stickers, and some fucking cunt wrote back pissed because I didn't write her a legit note, and I'm a money-hungry prick and so on. I was bummed, man. I should tell that bitch to write to Eminem and wait for a fucking response. Bam also expands on his high school years in the interview, mentioning how people who never talked to him now wanted his fame and wanted to be a part of his life. It seemed like Bam was oddly specific with his narrative and calling somebody out in response. He also calls out 2 of his teachers from East High School by name. Both mentioned that skateboarding would be just a fad. Bam's response was this: I wish I could let them know that quitting school was the best move I ever made. If I would have stayed, I would have been 2 years behind with all the work I've done so far. No one gives a shit about a high school diploma. And if Mr. P and Mr. N combine their salaries times that by 5, it still wouldn't equal what I made. So fuck you both. Not the most mature on Bam's end, but Bam did give a shout out to one of the cooler teachers at the school. And you also have to remember, dude, Bam was in the early 20s at this point. So this anti-education vibe, it seems understandable to me, even when you consider, you know, skateboarding culture back then. I got another one of Bam's responses that I want to quote. All they want you to do is go to college. It's so boring. Everyone goes to college and gets an A. Big deal. I know grandparents get so amped on telling people all that. Yeah, my granddaughter goes to college and gets A's. Who cares, lady? My dad let me do whatever I want, and skating came before school. When your parents don't let you do anything and always ground you, it's obvious that when you go off to college, you're going to drink and do drugs till the fucking sun comes up because that's your first taste of freedom. And I had freedom from the beginning. So I had no reasons to do drugs and be bitter and say my parents are dicks. That's all I've ever heard. It's bullshit, Hoof. Parents need to open their eyes every once in a while, for fuck's sake. So on August 19th, 2001, Bam would host an unofficial X Games and CKY3 premiere party at the Trocadero Theater in downtown Philly. The party would feature a viewing of the film. In addition, we would get performances by him, CKY, and the hardcore punk band McRad. The event had an alleged attendance of 1,300, and this would also be him's first US performance that Bam paid out of pocket for, including first-class tickets for the band. I also want to mention to you guys that CKY3's release date on Wikipedia is labeled as February 12th, 2001. No. Alright, I seriously felt confused by this for a very long time, but after doing some thinking, I realized that the Wikipedia is wrong, so let me explain. So first off, if you click the source on Wikipedia, it takes you to the site about the Trocadero Theater party that happened on August 19th, which was the debut of the film, so there's no way that it came out in February 2001. Wow! Also, one of the scenes from CKY3, Mike Vallely vs. 4 Random Jocks, which we will talk about later, had a court record that was time-stamping the event as June of 2001, as well as the release date for the film being in February of 2002. So it wouldn't make any sense that the movie came out in February 2001, and I don't know where this mistake came about, but I'm pretty sure that's wrong and that the actual premiere was August 19th, and the release date was more likely February of 2002. CKY3 made a tribute to the death of both Keenan Milton and Sean Miller. Sean Miller passed away in a car accident in 1995, and Keenan Milton passed away on July 5th, 2001 during an Independence Day party, where he accidentally drowned. CKY3 displays that sudden shift of success in Bam's life, within moments into the film where we see the whole crowd chant CKY live at
Nope, this was actually in Calgary for the Tony Hawk Tour.
The introduction for CKY3 features a disclaimer by Deco, and also he gets smacked a few times, and that's when he changes his tone and changes his impression.
Yes, so pay attention and don't do this at home, because if you do, you'll pay the consequences. That's right.
And it's very funny. The intro track was a Demo track, Puritania? Puritania. Dude, I haven't listened to Demo since high school, so I have no idea how to pronounce this, but just guys, it came off of their 5th studio album, and it also came out March of 2001, so it makes sense why Bam used that track, but moving on. CKY3's biggest addition was the debut of Bam's longtime friend / ex-pro skateboarder, Brandon Novak. Novak and Bam met each other at Cheapskates in 1988. A Baltimore native, he developed a talent for skateboarding around the age of 7, and at age 14, his skateboarding caught the attention of Tony Hawk, and Novak became the first pro skater to be sponsored by Gatorade. This also earned him a spot working on the Pal Peralta team. He was also featured on Pal Peralta's 1992 Chaos. Following this, Bam saw Novak less and less, until finally losing contact with him. Potentially, this could be due to Novak's addiction struggles. In his late teens, Novak developed an addiction to heroin. In 2008, Novak published his memoir, Dream Seller. With the help of Joe Franz, Novak mentions his graphic stories of his attempts to get high and losing the trust of his family, as he lived in a constant state of denial from all accountability of his actions. It's a really great read. If you guys are really interested and are looking for insight on addiction, I highly recommend this book. So let me take you to chapter 25. Novak mentioned how he got kicked off the Pal Peralta team, where he wrote, "My last tour with Pal Peralta was a struggle. The mainstays of Pal Peralta team at the time are Steven Caballero, Danny Wainwright, Charlie Wilkins, Jamie Fortune, Jeff Taylor, Rachman Chung, Jershan Mosley, and Bucky Lasik." Bucky Lasik, who I have not seen for several months. Buck approaches and says, "Brandon, it's been a long time. What have you been doing to yourself? You look like shit." I meet his statement with humorous sarcasm. "Thanks, buddy." But Bucky's face did not change, and I realized he wasn't joking. Mike Vallely was the team manager at the time. We'll learn more about Vallely in a sec, but you should know now that Vallely is straight edge, and he does not have time for that kind of disrespect to pro skating. Mike at first asked Novak if he is alright, and mentions that he'll be keeping an eye on him. And he was right to feel that way, since Novak was popping pills and still using. And it was clearly shown at the very first demo of the tour. Novak winded up barfing in front of a group of fans on the course. This was accompanied with disgust and disapproval with his peers. Humiliated, Novak sat the remainder of the event, lying about being food poisoned. However, Vallely knew it was a lie. These kids who come to our demos aren't blind, and they aren't stupid. They can tell you're on drugs, and they can spot you sneaking off to get high. Like it or not, we're role models to these kids. I know you don't care about that, but I won't let you set a bad example for them while you're a part of this team. My team. Understand? As long as you have drugs on you, this tour is in jeopardy. Mike Vallely would eventually point to a sewer drain and give Novak an option. Either to get high, or to follow his dream and be a pro skater. Unfortunately, we all knew what Novak's choice was. You're right, Mike. Fuck. I don't need this shit. I'm not even into drugs anyway. I only had this stuff because some fan gave it to me. I'm sure you guys could catch the obvious lie here. Novak's been known for that. He's been in and out of rehab about 13 times, and he's sort of developed a negative reputation of lying and stealing to sort of get to his end goal, which is to get high. And this will affect Bam. But let's talk about how Bam and Novak started talking again. So Bam would reach out to Novak to respark his friendship and for him to be featured in CKY3. So how did Novak get into CKY3? Bam would reach out to Novak to respark his friendship. Novak was about 23 at the time when he got a call from Bam.
Hello? Brandon Novak. Who's this? It's Bam. Long time no see. Bam? Yep. I saw Bucky the other day and we got to talking, and I asked, whatever happened to Novak?
Cool. What's going on?
Well, for one, I hear you're addicted to heroin.
Well, not anymore. I'm 60 days clean now. Other than that, everything's going great.
You still skate at all?
Yeah, from time to time. Since I'm clean, I've been skating more and more.
Cool, well, I'm making CKY3 right now. You feel like coming by to make a cameo? I have a skate ramp in my backyard of my parents' new house. You should come by for a couple days and lay the hammer down. I have a new house, you can stay there with me. It'll be just like old times.
When Bam picked me up from Westchester bus station, we hadn't seen each other for years. But the moment we made eye contact, I knew the bond we had shared as kids still remained. Strangely, although he was on the verge of worldwide fame, he felt an allegiance to me because I was one of his friends he had prior to making it big. Even more strangely, he felt that he owed me. When we were younger, my presence had challenged him to be his best. I was the most popular skater. I was in the magazine. I was on the Pal Peralta team. In his mind, he felt that I was the one who should have been famous, not him. As a result, he felt the need to help me set my life straight. So Novak would spend a few days at Bam's house filming the segments for CKY3, being featured in a bit titled Storming the Castle, a quick few second scene that feels like it took a little bit longer to set up than the actual payoff. At the time, Bam also had a 7-foot-high backyard mini-ramp, as we would see showcased throughout the film, including the segments featuring Novak's rusty skating talent. Honestly, Novak's story is inspiring and insightful towards the psychology of junkies. However, back then, I will remind you guys, Novak was a POS.
Because I knew I could.
I would get him out of rehab, get home, no sooner than we were home, he'd be right out on the front street making another drug deal.
I knew I could manipulate her. She was an easy scam.
Not an exaggeration either. Novak even admits this himself.
I had the whole back bedroom full of Christmas gifts wrapped up for my grandchildren. Stole every single Christmas present out of the house.
Bam had no idea what he was getting into. Westchester was a small college town. Heroin addiction was not a common interaction for Bam. In a sense, Bam felt guilty about what happened to Novak. He looked up to Novak as a kid, which is why Bam wanted to help him. Joe Franz was a lot more reluctant though. Franz had experience with junkies and had no trust in Novak whatsoever. That's where we'll leave the topic for now. 1-800-COLLECT-CALL is a skit based on the 1-800-COLLECT ad campaign during the 90s. During this, Dunn would attempt to make a collect call. Bam would walk up to him and then clock Dunn in the head, mentioning his mistake. Dunn didn't know that he could save $1 by dialing 1-800-COLLECT. My favorite part of this had to probably be Deco. He kind of like played this business guy who was on the phone.
You know how much you can save? I saved a small fortune. You're ridiculous. Yeah, I did. I totally did.
Bam would then call his buddy Loomis and claim that Dunn was talking shit. Loomis comes, pushes Dunn into the bushes, and starts headbanging while his buddy beats the shit out of him. Bam insults Loomis for his tight-ass pants and then walks away. CKY would not be complete without shopping cart stunts. According to Novak, Bam called these shopping cart slams. Joe Franz's influence is noticeable during this, not only for his 16mm camera, but also for the variety of filters that he used throughout production. This featured stunts done by Dunn, Novak, Maldonado, Jess, Bam, Rake, and Rad, who actually took the most bumps out of all. He not only dislocated his shoulder and snapped his tailbone, but he also got arrested in nothing but his jockstrap. Jess also took a noticeably heavy bump at the end of the bit, which resulted in Deco laughing his ass off.
And that old motherfucker goes, was there somebody in that? like we got it. It had that huge camera to push nothing.
Rakyun's Picnic showcased Dunn's impression of Rake. For the entire bit, Deco would dub over Rake's gestures as he tries to impress Jen. Rake does this by pulling out a guitar out of the picnic basket and starts jamming. Rake's attempt to score does get sabotaged with the presence of a bird character who I think might be Dunn? I'm not sure. Rake gets eggs dropped on him, and he retaliates by pulling out a bow and shooting the bird in the ass, which then resulted in the bird retaliating back by dropping a glob of pudding that is, was supposed to resemble so, resulting in Jen to run away in disgust. Rake was left defeated in a mess of bird poo.
I had to go back to work after that.
Oh.
That was like, I left on my lunch hour because they're like,
oh, yeah.
It'll be super quick, blah, blah, blah. I had to go back to work.
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
I started working for this dude, and imagine like your first day or two on the job, and you're meeting your new employee.
Yeah.
And then he just got shit on by a giant fucking
pterodactyl, whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was still frosting and like egg and shit in my hair. I'm like, oh, hi, you know what I mean?
Hey.
Get back to work here, like 2:30. Got a lot of reactions to run.
Yeah.
It's like, is that raw egg?
Yeah.
Like, he didn't say anything, but
yeah.
I was like, oh my God. I think I would try to use some solvent to get that shit out of my
hair.
The skate footage is on par with the rest of the CKY films. Mike Maldonado probably stole the show for me out of all of them. But then again, I don't really know anything about skating, so. However, we also got cameos with the likes of Carrie Getz, Novak, Ardo Sari, and Tosh Townsend. We do get a variety of clips from when Bam also had blonde hair, which I learned on the Jackass Volume 1 commentary. Bam was actually inspired by Eminem for this cut. During the skating segment, there was a quick 2-second of text that stated, "This sentence has been placed here for no fucking reason." Therefore, I felt it was only right that I do the same. One of my favorite moments, okay, is when Ryan enters the public restroom. There's one guy already at the urinal, right? And then another guy comes in to look at the mirror. Dunn basically pisses like Butters from South Park, with his pants and underwear pulled all the way down. Ryan then states,
"There are fucking no girls out there."
Looks appalled at Dunn, and he just walks out. I can't talk about the Along Comes Mary by the Bloodhound Gang segment, where Dunn and Rab were roller skating like brothers, but only closer. I'm sure some of you know which one I'm talking about. Dunn does break his wrist during this, after he tumbles, but following it plays another set of skate and stunt footage. One worth mentioning is Bam climbing on top of a moving train and gaps from one cart to another, and I thought that was nuts, dude. So Stuffed Dummy makes its return in CKY 3. So you could guess how I feel about this. Bam and Deco throw a fake dummy in front of a moving vehicle, the vehicle slams on its brakes, and Deco books it. Bam then stays to confront the guy who was driving. Bam denies it was him and puts the blame on the guy who ran.
Funny, dude. No, I know, but I mean, it's just
No, you know, well, why'd you do it?
He thought it would be funny.
What if there's a car come down and get no accident?
Well, it's just newspapers. It wouldn't hurt anything. It's just
it doesn't fucking matter, dude.
Ways, like...
Regardless if it's fake, it's still a messed up idea to include in this. Keeping something like this on a film glorifies and inspires copycats to do the same prank. I don't want to be uptight about it, but it's just too dangerous for a one-sided joke like this. However, its shocking nature was entertaining, especially the first time I watched it. Bam obviously wanted CKY to go against the status quo of media of today. By today, I mean 2001. This could even extend to recording a full-on fist fight of fellow skater Mike Vallely. So let's talk about Mike Vallely versus 4 random jocks.
Scene 1, take 3. Hello, my name is Tony Hawk. I am a professional skateboarder, and this is the Gigantic Skate Park Tour 2001. Global style.
September of 2001, Bam would make his second appearance on Tony Hawk's Gigantic Skate Park Tour, being documented once again on ESPN. I think Bam embraced his Jackass persona much more during this.
I'm on this tour to ride a skateboard and to do Jackass!
Like, there's quite this energy shift from the previous year. Bam mentioned that he would occasionally be told by strangers to quote-unquote do Jackass. He didn't really know what that meant.
No, I don't really know what that means.
Do Jackass!
Is this doing Jackass? You know, like days where I spend all day faxing things, you know? Like, so when I get to skate, I'm really psyched. For the Tony Hawk Tour, I'm gonna make sure I skate as much as I possibly can.
Also who was present on the tour was Mike Vallely. And guys, I gotta be honest with you, man. I've been living a lie all my life. Like, alright, so Mike V's name is pronounced Valley, right? All my fucking life, I've said Vallely. I've messed up my lines already. I had to redo some of them. I don't know, man. I think there's just some sort of Mandela effect because it was mentioned immediately during the 9 Club interview with Mike Vallely. Fuck.
What would you have done to me if I called you Vallely?
Nothing.
Nothing?
I have to sometimes reference myself as Vallely. Or someone wouldn't know what I'm talking about.
Right. But I'm sure you get that a lot. I'm sure that name. It's weird because it doesn't, when you look at it on paper, I think it's just because of the double L and the one L. It's I don't know.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I guess. I don't know. It's been tripping people up for a long time, but it's not something I get hung up about.
You don't care?
No, I don't care.
So Mike V doesn't care how you say it, so I don't know. I don't think it matters. Well, either way, 2003 would be the release of the documentary Mike V's Greatest Hits, a documentary of Mike Vallely's history of physical confrontations. It also dips into his brief hardcore wrestling career that he did. With that being said, Vallely isn't really an aggressive person. He's actually relatively passive. But he's not afraid to stand up for injustice against skateboarders, as he did during the Tony Hawk Tour. On June 1st, 2001, while touring in Seattle, the group's bus driver was getting harassed by a few punks. They were basically trying to pick a fight by talking trash about skaters. For some reason, they criticized them for drinking water and milk, I guess?
Incident. I'm walking out of this 7-Eleven. I got a bottle of water in my hands. It was a Jeep. It was these guys. They were talking smack to Mike V, who's coming out like a skateboarder. They're just dumb, drunk jocks.
And it was clear these guys were instigating.
Yeah, we're gonna kick your ass. We're gonna kick your ass. We're gonna kick his ass. We're gonna kick his ass. We're gonna kick all 3 of your asses. I go, that's funny, because I could take all 4 of you myself.
Then Bam began to film. While Bring Your Whole Crew by DMX plays, Valley swings hands and asserts his dominance, ramming into these dudes straight up. He took on all 4, which, I mean, 3 of which did back off immediately, but 1 did fight back, and he got taken down, and they both were ready for round 2, only to eventually be broken up.
And Bam is standing there with his video camera in his hand, and he goes, I got it. I got the whole thing on tape. Like, I fucking got it. I got it. I'm like, no, that's an imitation of you.
Mike Valley made a huge point at the end of the documentary. He was never proud of getting into fights whatsoever. He also tries to deter people from watching CKY or Jackass. But here he is in CKY 3.
It's almost 2 years ago now, and I don't really see myself ever having to get into anything like that ever again. I don't have the heart for it. I don't have the stomach for it. Yeah, it was 4 frat boy kooks, and they didn't have a chance against me. But what if they had a gun? What if they had a knife? What if, and what if one of my blows connected? What if I hurt one of those guys, man? What if I put one of those guys down for real? I'd have to live with that. And what are the repercussions of that? Who knows, man? Jail time? Like, you know, what's the reality of getting physical with anybody? It's only gonna go someplace bad.
And as hyped in the moment Bam was, it was a huge mistake, as the 4 would sue Bam and Vallely in 2005. The claims against the defendants were battery, invasion of privacy, outrage, and negligent infliction of emotional distress. I'm not gonna go into the entire suit because I'm not a lawyer and we gotta move this project on, but I'm gonna let you guys know that it was settled out of court in 2006 for an undisclosed amount.
Shrewsbury Stuber for Kiki.
Was a surprisingly popular bit, where Rab and Bam talk in a very kind of obnoxious yet comical voice and tries to feed meat to Kiki, real name is Whiskers. This was a bit where Rab and Bam were up late into the night, laughing their asses off while they were editing it. CKY3 would also be the debut of Rab's himself nickname. In a Fact or Fiction Loudwire interview, Rab mentioned he got his name from Chris Aspatay. Aspatay would dub both Rab and Ryan with the himself nickname.
He was Hoofpatay, the dude with the
the
duct tape around his hands.
Right.
And Aspatay would be like, oh, there he is, like Rab himself, live in person. Like, what are you gracing us with your presence? Like, he was acting like, you know, like, oh, you're some big celebrity now that CKY2K came out, and he was actually doing it to Ryan as well, and being like, there he is, done himself.
Shit Dollar was a bit inspired by a cut Jackass skit called Poo Dollar, where the crew coated a dollar in chocolate icing and manure. They then leave it sitting out on the floor for a potential victim to pick it up. The prank worked, and it left a man gagging in the bushes. While trying to get him to sign a release form, the dude was fuming and demanded a $100 payout. Well, I mean, he probably deserves it, but...
Have you ever seen a dollar just blowing in the breeze, carrying along in the wind? I'm sure you have. But did you pick it up? Yeah, you did. Well, pick it up today, I dare you, because look what it is coated with.
The Jackass Too Hot for TV version had a similar result. For this one, Deco and Bam would confront the person as if they won a contest.
Congratulations! How do you feel? You've just found the lucky manure dollar.
Here,
Coated with crap. Oh no, it's all yours. Today is a glorious day for you. How do you feel? Not too well. Hey, you can wash it off, and it is currency. How do you feel though, really, deep down? Is it like Christmas almost?
My favorite Bam line had to have been,
are you gonna buy a lot of shit with that dollar?
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, Chris Rab, specifically in the jockstrap skin, was the real MVP in CKY3, and his feature in the finale proved it. The finale of CKY was in reference to George Carlin's 1990 comedy special, Doing It Again.
I know things you never see. You never see someone taking a shit while running at full speed.
According to Rab on episode 19 of his own podcast, the bit was Jess's idea after the two watched the comedy special together.
Speed, and I still remember you being like, hey Rab, would you do that? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Like,
it's something that George has never seen. Let's make it something that he's seen.
Yeah. And dude, and that was one of the coolest things is he actually found out about it.
Oh yeah.
And that was like.
And
damn.
if he was a dick, the move would have been like cease and desist on the footage because we use a clip of him.
Yeah.
But he was like, oh dude, that's amazing. Like, I'm so stoked you guys actually did that.
Yeah.
It was also mentioned that Phil and Ape took Bam and Jess to see Carlin live, a gesture that resulted in some judgmental stares from opposing parents, and actually an insane amount of jealousy from me. Chris Rabb was going to prove Carlin wrong. With the help of 18 laxatives and the track Rock Lobster, Rabb was ready for this bit, and after taking the laxatives, nothing happened. Until Rabb took one sip of coffee. Then the moment finally arrived. He urged them to immediately grab the camera because it's now or never, resulting in this masterpiece that you can't see due to guidelines. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. In conclusion, CKY3 is the perfect pair to the Jackass binge. We not only get the appearances of Knoxville and Pontius, but we also get B footage from segments like Bam's kicking his dad's ass all day, Party Boy, the Tony Hawk Tour, and even Jackass Too Hot for TV. And let's not forget the moment when Bam peed on his dad, Phil, and used April's line, "Pee on your dad," as a transition to a hit music video. CKY3 lived up to Bam's expectations. For 47 minutes, it's packed with slice-of-life content. While CKY 1 and 2 were more of a collaboration of older footage from Bam's high school year, CKY 3 was mostly a collection of Bam's footage after the sudden increase of wealth, which will only increase going forward from here. I personally stand with CKY 2K being my favorite at this point, and the one thing for that is because CKY 3 lacked any bonus footage. Both CKY 1 and 2 feature some bonus footage at the end of the tape. I also think that CKY 3 felt rather recycled as far as the concepts and stunts that they did, like shopping cart slams, the dummy scene, skating, some of the skating highlights, and Bam jumping off of high places. However, that's just me nitpicking. The tape, all in all, is as good as the first two, so do not sleep on this. Before we go, let's talk about October 2001. This was the release of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. Pro Skater 3 was an important installment for including both CKY 3's 96 Bitter Beings and Bam Margera as a playable character. So Bam's stats are average in the game, with skill points put into rail balance, ollie, speed, and switch. His special tricks include the 540 tail whip, the jackass, the human dart, and the Russian boneless. Beating career mode on Bam unlocks his secret tape. Bam's tape has really nothing new except for some skating footage with a Super 8 video camera, where Bam states,
"Somebody hands me a Super 8 video camera, of course I'm gonna, go nuts with it, so I'm running all over the place just filming people's faces, and like this one random guy just comes up and he's like, that's very rude what you did," and like I was just in a goofy mood, so I pulled the camera back out and start filming him again. So he tries to punch me, but he ends up punching the camera, and it wasn't my camera, so I don't care.
CKY would also have 96 Bitter Beings featured in the behind-the-scenes clips. The clip actually featured the developers doing shopping cart slams, being a tribute to the CKY movies. This exposure was great for both CKY and Bam Margera going into 2002. Jackass Season 3 has some misinformation on its release date. While some sources mention Season 3 airing from December to February, this isn't 100% confirmed. The best release date would probably be from June to August of 2001. Looking back at the Jackass companion book written by Sean Cliver, he states on page 20, "The day after the last episode of the third season aired in August 2001, a news story broke with statements by Knoxville claiming that Jackass was officially over and done with. This came as a bit of a shock to MTV. Several months of meetings, phone calls, and negotiations later, the idea of a movie was born and settled upon by all pertinent parties. The only stipulation made on the producer's behalf was that it to be rated an unequivocal R. The cast has all gone about their individual ways. Knoxville was scoring movie roles, Bam was making CKY and Haggard, Dave England proved the doctors wrong and had a baby girl, Aaron moved to California, and Steve-O was headlining shows with the likes of Pontius, Wee Man, Preston, and Dunn. Transitioning from a 21-minute episodic series to a multi-million full-length feature film would not be a simple task.
Hey Rick, it's the red tab right next to the thing.
You, man, if you know how this works, what's going on here?
It's the red tab on top.
It's not working, Dimitri.
changes were going to need to be made to accommodate to the increase in budget and legality. No longer a simple handycam venture of a few dozen, the crew would be in need to hire Kevin Roberts, a professional cameraman, to work with the newly provided digital beta cams. Taken more seriously would be the legal and safety regulations. A whole legal department would look over any ideas for the film after being approved by a producer. Then a safety department would advise counsel to the crew. Quoting the companion book, "They remind us that we are all frail little meat puppets by filling in the more technical gaps in our reality deficit imagination, along with necessary cleanup measures required by law when dealing with our favorite biohazardous family." Lastly, planning would organize a 5-month calendar of events to keep production within continuity and on schedule for a fall release. They came to the conclusion of filming in 5 locations from January to May of 2002, with the locations being the Pacific Northwest, Westchester, Japan, Florida, and finishing it all off in California. Jackass the movie would be set to premiere October 21st, 2002.
Parents and family play a big part in the development of values, but friends do too. Parents often worry their teenager is running with the wrong crowd and could do something to regret later. And be patient and trust them, they won't let you down. All right?
Audio Footwear was a skate shoe company created in 1998 by skateboard legend Chris Miller. It didn't take them long to sign Bam Margera with a sponsorship for the brand, and in June of 2001, Audio published an article announcing the premiere of a new skate tape called One Step Beyond at an ASR trade show in San Diego at the Horton Plaza Theater, after which Planet Hollywood across the street would host a performance by CKY and the Blockheads. Apparently, according to the article, one of the CKY members actually got into a fight over a girl and wound up in the hospital that night. I'm not sure who, there's not much I could find on this, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Bam got a lot of screen time for this project. His spotlight was one of the first in the tape, using the track Du Hast by Rammstein. Legally this time. He toured with Tony Hawk, who commented on traveling with Bam.
With Bam is always a lot of fun, but it's kind of unnerving because you never know what he's going to be up to and what kind of trouble everyone's going to get in because of it.
Bam's segment would feature the usual CKY clips, newer attempts like jumping onto trees, the shopping cart launches, jumping into things. He also used a hymn track that was found on Razorblade Romance. We also get to see Bam ollie off of a diving platform, crashing golf carts, FDR footage, the usual works. Honestly, you could go without watching this in your binge, but if you're into skate tapes, I highly recommend it. Bam already had Haggard late into production by February of 2002. During this, Audio announced exclusive CKY model shoes. This is a co-op venture between Bam and the crew. The information here is rather foggy. Also sponsored by Audio was the 2nd annual Bam Margera X Games Bash. Much like last year, this would be the premiere of CKY4 on August 17th, 2002. Sadly, I couldn't find much information on this. CKY4's VHS would be released on November 10th, 2002, and the DVD on March 25th, 2003. CKY4 has quite a few controversies in its history, which is why there's about 4 pressings of CKY4 that I'm aware of. And the cut content is rather memorable too. The intro track for CKY4 is You Think I Ain't Worth a Dollar, But I Feel Like a Millionaire by Queens of the Stone Age, which was a very interesting choice on the part of Bam. We get thrown into a lot of content in the intro, and the production quality is very noticeable. And on the DVD, the HD is gorgeous. I like to point out the scene where Tony Hawk pulls up to pick up Bam in his Lambo, and Bam just is like, bruh, what are you doing? Get in the passenger seat. And then he smacks Tony's ass? So in 2014, MTV premiered CKY's Greatest Hits, a documentary going through the history of CKY. It's a really good watch, guys. I wish I would have watched this sooner. The documentary just adds so much additional content on certain stunts and moments, which mentions the historic day that Rab pissed on an electric fence.
If you pee on an electric fence, the electric goes back into your penis. And we're going to separate fact from fiction.
Not much I can show you on this, alright? But I'm going to throw out any speculation on this being fake. This totally seems like something they would do. And here's what Chris Rab had to say during his interview with True Exact Radio.
The way I could explain it is like, it's like, you know that feeling like if you stick your finger in the socket? Yeah, it's like, it's not too bad. It's just like, it's like that. But then it was like that on my dick. But then I was worried, like, is that gonna make my dick not work? So I was freaked out about that. But the main thing was the feeling in my teeth. So it felt like I was chewing on tinfoil. I don't know what's going on in my mouth. You know, like, so that was the part that was weird. It was like this, like, tinfoil, like, felt like I was chewing on tinfoil and my fillings or something. Like,
CKY4 would also be the debut of Narkill, Bam and Deco's satire project. This synth pop-esque band featured Bam on keyboard, Rick Vose on guitar, Deco improvising on vocals, Matt Cole on mixing, and Jess on drums. In 2003, they released a self-titled record featuring the songs in both Haggard and CKY4. One track not featured on the record, but was in CKY4 was Eat My Fuck, a CKY collaboration track. For this 40-second music video, we get to see their use of the Painted Castle from CKY3, a truly classic bop that reminds me of Thunderkiss 65 by White Zombie. We also get 2 additional Narkill music videos in CKY4, one being Mustard Man. This, as I'm sure you know, is a rib on Raekyun's dramatic hatred of mustard. The music video features Bam, Deco, and Jess performing in a room entirely covered in yellow, with bottles of mustard located on the cabinets behind them. Meanwhile, Raekyun is seen holding hands with Mustard Girl, which was actually just Rab in a yellow dress and wig. She is taken away from Rake by Mustard Man, played by Lord Bataro. I don't know if I mentioned Lord Bataro yet, but here it is.
And Rake's just like, the whole time. Yeah, it's my girlfriend. This is stupid. All this yellow.
Oh my god.
Lord Bataro met Jess through Darren at the Battle of the Bands, when Jess had the band Bored to Death, and Darren had the band This End Up.
Where need be.
Well, I always got called in when someone didn't show up.
Yeah.
That's who I was.
Yeah, well, you got called in Graphic Arts with Captain Undies, right?
They used to hang out by the 3rd floor steps at East High School. Later on in life, Lord Bataro would study to become a chef. In addition, he would be Deco's roommate and would be called in if needed at the last minute for certain bits. Rab pointed out on the podcast that Lord Bataro did not hold back during that music video.
So this next one is only on the first pressing. It's called
He-Man vs. Skeletor, which was about the homoerotic relationship between Beastman and Skeletor, during which Deco would dress up as both characters. The bit was one of Deco's finest. While Bam jams on the keyboard, Deco's freestyle would be accompanied with stop motion of the He-Man action figures, and this bit is a must-see. It's sad to say, but this bit resulted in a cease and desist letter by Mattel. So, one of those companies with a really shady history. They have a very aggressive legal department that is known for frivolous lawsuits. In the late 2010s, accusations were made for workplace bullying in the form of harassment, age discrimination, retaliation, and wrongful termination. But not only that, guys. In 1971, Mattel had lied on their financial statements by falsely reporting unfilled purchase orders as sales. So, I guess CKY just messed with the wrong company here, and they just ended up complying with the cease and desist letter, which was quite a shame, man. This video has been one of the best they've done in the series, and just got shot down. I guess this is a safe time to mention Narkill's Ottomans Recording Hell, aka Brand's Freestyles, a 17-track CD featuring Deco's improv talent. All the tracks were recorded in Bam's basement throughout 2002. This featured Deco's various accents and impressions, and if you're into Deco's accents, you'd probably like this. Some tracks are just a bit hit and miss, and it's silly and it's simple, but I think some of the impressions are just outdated. I'd recommend at least listening to it once again just to get exposure to that Deco energy. Regardless, the CD itself is on the rarer side of the CKY iceberg, and it's worth quite a pretty penny on eBay. CKY4 featured several scenes of people confronting Bam and his friends while street skating. One worth mentioning involved a landscaper in a parking lot while they were skating at night. The guy dogged that he is the one that has to repair the damages that they cause.
It's that simple. What are you gonna do about it? It's that simple. Look, take the tape. It's that simple. Call a bunch of fucking assholes.
However, he made the mistake of pushing his authority onto the anti-authority complex of Mike Vallely.
Yo. Stop. Dude. Why are you acting like you're in charge of this? All you are is the landscaper.
Don't get my face, man.
He continuously got into Mike's face until Mike retaliated by grabbing him by the throat and telling him to leave. The dude obliged and left, ending the rather jarring scene. This scene has a particular interesting fan theory.
A bulldozer.
Some pointed out that this is the exact guy that could be seen in a bulldozer on Season 1, Episode 3 of Viva La Bam. It's a bit of a stretch, but I think it's kind of a neat connection. Following CKY3, Rab himself would earn the nickname Shit Guy by many of the CKY fans. He lives up to this in CKY4. One incident was when he shat on a glass wall at a bar and grill in New York City while someone was eating. Another bit, he got out of a van and shat in front of somebody just chilling on the curb. And lastly, he shat while in a van going 70 miles per hour on the highway, and he missed quite a bit. Sad to say though, CKY4 is when Rab's alcoholism becomes quite noticeable.
Rab, you're going up to get hors d'oeuvres, dude. You're f***ing dead meat.
He used to tour with the CKY band quite frequently and would miss class just to party with them. It got so bad that he ironically got 3 Ds and an F one semester, while his character in Haggard did the same thing.
F this time. Normally I get all B's.
But how ironic is it that he has 3 Ds and an F because of the script?
All just because I fucking said that line. It jinxed the fuck out of me, and now I got an F.
One of the pressings of CKY4 featured an exclusive scene involving Chad Ginsburg visiting the grave of Gigi Allen. Alright, we gotta go down a rabbit hole for a second, guys, because there's a lot to say about Gigi Allen, and you gotta understand who Gigi Allen is to really understand this whole scene. On one hand, he was known as a punk rock prodigy. He was an advocate of punk rock culture, and he was contributing his narcissistic, nihilistic point of view on a global and national scale.
These people over here would rather shelter their kids, they would rather censor them, they would rather keep them from the real world, and those are the very people that stalkers, people say, yes I am. What you see at my show, you'll see on the streets.
The real world.
You'll see what's happening in urban America, not in Thailand, John.
You are a night.
On the other hand, he sort of was everything else. Gigi Allen was known for his acts of danger music and shock rock. During his performances, he would commit transgressive acts that involved harming himself, defecating, plans to off himself, nudity, violence towards everything and everyone.
I like to ask Mr. Gigi Allen, how do you hurt people and say that they deserve it? I mean,
because
what kind of human being are you?
It'll make them stronger. If I hurt somebody, chances are they're going to be much more defensive. If somebody comes and beats the out of me, if somebody comes at me the second time, it's not going to happen.
However, I don't really think we should idolize Gigi Allen. There was a psychiatric report of Gigi Allen which was filed in 1989 when he was in prison. He was described as showing features of mixed personality disorder with borderline narcissistic and masochistic features. This could also kind of be seen as a big mental health story as well. But in 1993, at the age of 36, Gigi Allen passed away of a heroin overdose. And now, in 2002, Chad Ginsburg is here to visit his grave the way Gigi Allen would have wanted it, down a whole bottle of Jim Beam and piss all over it. And so naturally, Chad just got tremendously wasted during this. Chad would just talk a lot of incoherent shit on camera. Anyway, yeah, I watched a really interesting documentary on Gigi Allen. Here's what it is. I can't remember the name right now. It's on YouTube. It's a very good, interesting watch, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But anyway, back to the video. So, Chester County was a bit about the history of Westchester County, narrated by Deco. This one I'm not really a fan of. It's just Deco saying profanity over black and white portraits of Westchester founding fathers, while also mentioning Raikyon and Lord Bartaro. That's pretty much it.
But to Lord Bartaro's surprise, when he undid the senator's trousers, a mere log fell out.
It's kind of lackluster to me. I'm sorry, guys. Paintball shitfuck, though, was a bit funnier.
Phil gets off work in 15 minutes, and I have 20 paintballs up in his yacht. He's gonna fucking die.
And prior to this, he shot himself into the foot and reacted accordingly. Bam then decides to put all of his pain out on his dad, not just by shooting him several times, but also shooting Phil in the foot at the end.
Felt like this.
The cover for CKY4 features Ryan Dunn, aka Random Hero, performing a stunt that involved rolling down a hill in a barrel. The twist being he has his arm and head sticking outside of the barrel. The scene began with an attempt by Jen, who had a pillow for safety. She was okay, and that's when Dunn stepped in. Dunn did the stunt and landed back first, shrieking,
"Oh my god, my fucking poor goddamn spine."
It wasn't good. There's also a scene where the group goes to war.
Oh, it looks real bad, Sergeant. It's there, 100% pure death. I say we get out of here right away. Roger that. I'll send Rab in first.
One thing worth mentioning is Rab dying and holding on to Deco for help, but everyone just sort of agrees that he's dead and just leaves. We get tons of shots of the crew firing guns while various sound clips play. Deco's death scene is pretty dramatically comical. As for the poker scene, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So the group is playing cards while drinking wine and smoking cigars.
Who can fucking bet that?
Well, I guess I'm out. And you owe me $800. I'll pay you back.
Also, Novak bets his rosary his grandmother gave him and loses it to Deco. He's not okay with it.
Look at that! You with it, yeah.
Also, Dunn is seen drinking wine with a cigar in his mouth, and he spills it all over the oblivious pupper on his lap. Then we get a sudden shot of Ryan fucking what we believe to be Deco's wife, resulting in Deco to snap at him. I really didn't find this scene all that funny, and I was kind of confused. Like, at first I thought it was a deleted scene to Haggard, but I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to me. So what do you guys think about a theory I have, that Bam idolized Vil Vallow so much that he's almost trying to be him? Because I begin to think about this during the Him music video bit that featured Bam in his fur coat, top hat, he's got eyeliner, and his notorious Him belt buckle on. And there's just this aura of edginess that maybe even a little pretentious in a sense, just like given off by him in this bit. Anyway, this segment featured clips and stunts both new and old, and it was entertaining despite featuring a lot of stuff that I've already seen. And with that being said, a lot of CKY4's featured material was rather recycled moments from previous CKYs and the Jackass TV series, such as beating up Phil, an extended version of the stunt The Hole, the segment I Can't Talk About with Rab and Dunn, and of course the gigantic skate park tour and feature from both Pro Skater 3 and Audio One Step Beyond. Honestly, it wasn't really noticeable to me until just recently, and the amount of fresh content still holds everything together quite nicely. The credits to CKY4 would feature the track Burn by the Bloodhound Gang. During this, Bam thanked Jimmy Pop for helping him sign Him to a US label. At the time, Him was in the middle of a name dispute with a Chicago avant-garde jazz fusion band of the same name, just with a lowercase I. Him ended up calling themselves Her in the States for a little bit. This was due to the threat of legal action by the Chicago band. Apparently the band was not interested in sharing their name with the Finnish band. The frontman of the band, Doug, stated in the article, their Him stands for His Infernal Majesty. I'm seriously opposed to it, man. And as far as I can make it out, we had the name first. This feud is probably why Bam mentions that the band sucks and that we shouldn't confuse the two, which is an understandable response since Bam really loves Vallow and is probably not the biggest fan of avant-garde jazz. But it doesn't matter. This all doesn't matter because in March of 2003, the bands reached an agreement of less than $300,000, and so they both were able to share the label. So in the credits, Bam and Jimmy Pop would slap each other around until taking their drunk antics to the parking lot once again for some shopping cart slams. Rab would end up cutting his hand in this bit, and Jimmy responds by saying that in order to fix Rab, they have to run Rab into a soda machine.
I got so worked by that shopping cart, like so many different ways. I broke my tailbone in the shopping cart. I got multiple concussions. I got another concussion when I smacked my head into the soda machine. We were hanging out with Bloodhound Gang, and I think it was Jimmy that was, Jimmy Pop was pushing, and he was like, dude, he was all nervous, so then I kept giving him shit, like, stop being a fucking pussy and just do it, you know, like, and he was like, because he's like pushing like real light, and I was like, dude, that's not what we're trying to do. So then he was like, all right, and he fucking pushed super hard, and I went flying, and I ended up, I smacked my elbow so hard that I displaced my ulnar nerve. So it went outside of this little bone. So it was just out there. So then, like, I was supposed to have surgery, but they were like, look, if you have surgery.
The post-credits featured the crew playing tennis, Don Vito drinking 52 shots of peach schnapps. Also, that had the intro track to Viva La Bam playing. I thought that was kind of interesting. Old footage of antiquing, Brand's Icelandic game show, which I think is from CKY2. But what takes the cake for me is the Easter eggs found in the DVD menu. To access the Easter eggs, go to the bonus features. Press right until the red text disappears, then press left and right again, and the DVD cover to CKY2 will flip and reveal some bonus scenes. We get footage of Deco dressing up as Benjamin Franklin. He attempts to use a kite in a rainstorm to relearn electricity.
I harness onto them the electricity that flows through the circular district of the monoculus clouds. Yes, you might not have heard of that before, but that's because only I have. Now get wide on me and spread your knowledge.
He also gets another freestyle rap in. The second Kiki bit found in CKY4 actually had a follow-up Easter egg scene, where Rab goes to Times Square to find Kiki, coming across as very mentally unwell.
Hey, boo. Yeah. I can't find Kiki anywhere.
Oh, come on, Quay.
Come on, boo.
I find Kiki.
We also got some behind the scenes of the Beastman video. Joe Franz picks up Mark Hanna, who looked rather exhausted. Mark forgot to plug Joe's camera batteries in the night before.
Walks from here to my house loaded, and then once he got to my house, he figured like, why did I come here? Now I gotta go home. So he walks back to his house.
Even though he knew he had to be back at your house in an hour.
That didn't even like pass through his brain. He just thought like bed equals my house equals sleep. Why can't you just sleep at my house, like you idiot?
I don't know if this is an inside joke or not, but Joe and Bam say some mean shit to Hannah when he's in the room. It's just like, I don't know if this is just normal for them, but I don't know, it was weird.
The raddest part is he totally thinks we're joking, but like we both hate him together.
I can't wait for him to fucking come back here so we can make fun to his face some more, acting like we're his fucking friends.
Yo, what do you need? We need you to leave and not come back.
We need you to fucking...
Seriously, you're fired, Hank.
So you may notice that the shopping cart segments seem rather mid in CKY4. Well, have you guys ever wondered why nobody has stopped these guys from doing this stuff? Well, it happens all the time, just as it did in Shopping Cart Drama, a removed segment in CKY4. The store manager of the Dutton Mill shopping bag was pissed.
What's that there? A video camera?
Yeah.
Yeah? Why don't you give it to me? Yeah, I'll give it to you. What's your...
He attempts to grab Bam's recording camera, which escalates the situation further. Dunn, being the homie that he is, protects Bam and pushes the manager back. The manager then grabs Dunn by the throat and they tango for a bit. And mind, Dunn has a cast on. And of course Bam's gotta throw in his 2 cents.
You guys work at shopping bag and you're handling people like this? Are you crazy?
This incident was a crazy find, guys. You gotta check this out. It's sad to say that it's not on my copy. As you guys could have guessed, the store manager was not happy with being in CKY4, thus sending a cease and desist letter to the distributor. I got a hold of the letter, and it mentions themselves as being portrayed in a very unflattering manner. CKY4 wasn't a weak CKY per se, but it's definitely not my favorite either. Some of the newer bits just didn't make that much sense to me. It seemed like a lot of the effort went into the Beastman bit, plus all the recycled footage it wasn't bad, but just not new. I understand the purpose of this is to feature this older footage in higher quality, hence the latest and greatest in the title, so I wouldn't say it's redundant, just maybe watered down a tiny bit. But don't let that shake you, this is 100% a must-watch, guys. The skating footage was fantastic. We'll never forget the cop attempting to skate down a half-pipe, and the amount of footage we get is far worth the price. The biggest weakness of CKY4 was definitely the legal shit. We lost a lot of great content to the cease and desist letters, and if CKY4 had all the deleted scenes in one take, it would probably be the best CKY. Except, there is one version of CKY4 that may have been one of Bam's biggest fuck-ups. And I'm sure you guys know. On the first 500, some sources say 1,500 copies of CKY4, one of the Easter eggs was a sex tape of both him and Jen Revell. The clip is low res and features the track Whiplash, which is a Bad Habits remix by the artist JFK. Jen apparently had no idea Bam did this, which is kind of scummy on Bam's end. There's obviously two sides in this relationship, which we'll get into later, but this is just not right, okay? You can find the clip online, but it's nothing special, guys. You know, you could check it out for like a minute, but it really isn't. This is definitely something that's on the bottom of the CKY iceberg, but moving on.
Always review immunization records with a family physician and make sure your son or daughter has all recommended inoculations and booster shots.
Immunizations.
You're a brat.
I was going to do it perfect that time, too.
I gotta give a shout out to my buddy Kobe Cook. The next two topics are thanks to his coverage of Lost Jackass Media. The link is in the description for that. First, we're going to talk about the Jackass Town Hall Meeting Special, an unaired special that was also known as the Wendy Linden Incident. Citing CBS News, it stated that Wendy Linden claims in the lawsuit filed Wednesday that the show's producers recruited her at an April 21st taping to ask scripted questions of the cast. She said producers assured her that cast members wouldn't touch her and that she wouldn't be exposed to any hazardous activities. During this, Dave England would then spontaneously, as Reality TV World stated, used his body as a missile, landing into a lectern near Linden, thus hitting her and knocking her to the concrete floor, resulting in a herniated disc and a knee injury. Linden would sue Viacom for the damages, and the result of the suit isn't clear. There's not much on this, and the special, therefore, not surprisingly, didn't air. However, there is a leaked apology letter Dave sent to her, and it's kind of wholesome, I ain't gonna lie. So MTV saw dollar signs in Jackass the movie. This was obvious, and like you could tell because MTV produced several Jackass specials and cameos until the movie. The first in which was supposed to be Too Hot for MTV on August 9th, 2002. That special is an absolute gem. It featured the convict scene that no one's seen before, the vomlet, Aaron eating a spoonful of flour, and a segment featuring Dimitri. Actually, that one in specific, he got too drunk at a UK party. And the special also gave us a couple clips from CKY4 and stuff that was actually in the movie too. It's safe to say why MTV didn't want this to air. Why would they air a special with controversial segments while being under fire as they were? The special was once thought to be lost because there's not really a whole lot of information on the special itself as well, only being in the possession of a handful of people. However, the community does give a special thanks to Steve-O's personal assistant, Jen Moore, who petitioned to have the footage released. And in 2021, it was uploaded on YouTube by Sloan's TV Archive and can be found on Dailymotion, Vimeo, and the Internet Archive. If you haven't seen Too Hot for MTV, high recommendation. Really fascinating to see it. It was a piece of lost media that got found, and that's always just cool. The Jackass Barbecue Special, August 18th, 2002. It was a special that did air, and it was hosted by Loomis. The guests featured included Trey from Green Day, Andrew WK, Lara Flynn Boyle, Danny Masterson, Slash, Willie Garson, and let's not forget the Margeras, of course.
Oh, dude, his eyes are like so big. Like, look at.
During their interview, Bam would try to annoy his parents by imitating them. Bam randomly would attack his dad, telling him he's using his new technique, the fish hook. He was also complaining to Phil that he was wasting film. And then, of course, April's in the background telling him to stop, but doesn't really do anything. Bam pauses and attacks Phil one last time and just leaves. That's the Margeras on camera in a nutshell, guys.
Dude, I don't even know where we are, whose house this is, and what's going on. Like, nobody told me anything.
The main question is, where is Preston and Aaron?
Why, they're supposed to be here?
So for the special, they also played a prank on Preston and Aaron by purposely getting their limo lost just to see their reaction. Preston was so pissed. This special is a nostalgia trip for people that grew up with MTV. The special itself isn't really the most entertaining because it's mostly just hyping people up for the movie, but it does its job really well. On August 25th, 2002, we also get another special called The Making of Jackass the Movie. There's no need for me to go into detail on that. I'll talk about it a little bit later when we get to the movie. There's also a couple cameos that we could still talk about.
Johnny Knoxville, Bam, and Steve-O from Jackass.
On August 29th, 2002, Knoxville, Bam, and Steve-O were to present the Best Rap Video Award at the VMAs. Steve-O mentioned he had something planned for the crowd.
When I found out that I was going to be presenting tonight, I came up with the most amazing stunt ever. And I'm ready to do it. I told them, but they told me I'm not allowed to pull my wiener out.
So at the last minute, he decided to put his mouth over the microphone, and then Bam would just smack him in the back of the head, and there you go. They also stapled the winner to Steve-O's stomach. And the best part was that Eminem won the award, and then he got on stage, and we got an Eminem Steve-O interaction, so that was kind of great.
You just stapled yourself, man? This guy's really bleeding. What's up, man?
Bam also attended the 2002 Zulu Awards with Dunn and Dimitri. The Zulu Awards is a Danish sports award show that broadcasted on TV2 Zulu. However, the 2-hour special is completely lost, and I know nothing about this, so on October 21st, 2002, MTV followed up with a Jackass exclusive episode of Cribs. This featured Steve-O with Johnny Knoxville, Pontius, Dunn, and of course Bam. I want to throw in some Steve-O lore into this part. The apartment featured in this episode of Cribs is the same one featured in his 2001 tape, Don't Try This at Home, which centered around the Don't Try This at Home tour. Right around the end of filming season 2 in Florida, Steve-O got a call from a party promoter in Cleveland named Nick Dunlap. Dunlap offered Steve-O $700 to fly him, Bam, and Wee Man to appear at a nightclub. To give you an idea of how bad Steve-O's drug use was, let me read you page 138 in his book. That party in Cleveland is kind of a blur. I did all kinds of drugs, got predictably out of hand. At one point, I got 2 ecstasy pills, gave Bam half of one, and took the rest myself. Bam was still a rather sweet, innocent kid back then. The ecstasy was doing a number on him, and he was floored that I had a pill and a half. I'm not sure whether he realized I was also jacked up on coke and meth. When it was time for Steve-O to fly back home, he refused. He was simply too hungover and didn't give a single fuck if he missed his flight or not. And Dunlap oddly admired Steve-O for his rock and roll attitude. Steve-O ended up hanging out there for a few days. During that period, Steve-O and Dunlap formed a business relationship. Steve-O would introduce Nick to Jason Burke, a lawyer Steve-O knew from the University of Miami. The two would form J&N Media to distribute Steve-O's Don't Try This at Home. And in the fall of 2001, Dunlap would book Steve-O a tour throughout several college campuses, with the likes of Wee Man, Pontius, Dunn, and Preston. Some of this tour was featured in Steve-O's tape.
I also forgot to mention that Steve-O Don't Try This at Home Volume 2 actually was footage from that tour. My bad, guys. You can check it out.
Steve-O's substance use was a mess, which isn't too far from his apartment. We're talking about garbage everywhere, guys. Empty beer cans, drug paraphernalia, property damage, the list goes on.
Preparing for an eviction party.
This was also at the time his roommate was an ex-Army Marine who turned male stripper. Steve-O commonly mentions this guy in his stand-up routine, who easily had the cleanest room in the house too. I think I heard through someone on a podcast about how Knoxville gives off this vibe that he didn't know MTV was gonna show up. So he's just sort of standing there awkwardly, like knowing that he has to do something. And I guess that's probably why he decided to split before MTV left. Oh yeah, one thing I have to mention is Steve-O showing off his high Lyseska and the stapler gun he uses to staple his sack. I'm not joking. What I found interesting is how Steve-O was actually arrested earlier that year for an incident that occurred at a nightclub in Louisiana that July. He received obscenity charges after doing his staple gun routine. He was also charged with being a principal to second-degree battery for a separate stunt that night in which a bouncer allegedly threw a 19-year-old on his head and knocked him unconscious. Honestly, I don't think Steve-O did much wrong in this case, and I think it was proven the following year. The staple gun bit was dubbed as artistic expression. Quoting MTV News, a review of the tape of the incident clearly shows that although the performance is objectable, it is more than likely protected under free speech when conducted in front of adult patrons. Glover was placed on a supervised probation for 1 year, ordered to make a $5,000 donation to a local shelter for battered women and children, and ordered to never again perform in the venue. Steve-O's relationship with both Burke and Dunlap kind of boiled over after getting out of prison. Burke signed up Steve-O to get both health and life insurance, since this would be the healthiest state he would ever be in due to the litigation progress and him being sober. Steve-O mentions in his book, "I was down with the health insurance, but wasn't sure why I needed life insurance. Burke convinced me that with my lifestyle, I'd be crazy not to get it. I agreed." However, this would result in Steve-O's relationship with both Burke and Dunlap to never be the same. When Steve-O agreed to get life insurance, he demanded the condition that his niece's newborn daughter would be the sole beneficiary.
Steve-O continued to state in his book, "Not too long after, I got a call from my insurance company asking me to do a follow-up interview. Are you telling me I passed the physical for life insurance? I had. Then I asked for confirmation that Cassie was policy's sole beneficiary. She was not. Burke and Dunlap had made themselves beneficiary of 2/3 of the $3 million policy. Apparently, Burke and Dunlap always saw this more as insurance for their business than my life. This life insurance thing grew into a big problem. They claimed I knew about this arrangement and knowingly signed off on it. I didn't. Despite this, however, though, Steve-O would continue his partnership with these two going forward. But let's go back to MTV Cribs. So let's talk about Bam's entry in Cribs, which features his 4,800 square foot house that he purchased for his family. The tour, we get to see the room that no one goes into. Then he enters the kitchen, where he introduces us to Ape and Jen. I love the part where Bam mentions the $80 teapot his mom bought because she felt embarrassed by how the house looked. We also get a look at the editing room, Bam throwing himself downstairs, and an introduction to Phil's office. Phil handles Bam's finances, and mentions Bam has about $250,000 in the bank, after which Bam immediately attacks him.
$250,000.
Look at this, I did this fish hook thing, it's my new deal with...
And gets him with the fish hook. Let's not forget all the Elvis Presley memorabilia Phil had, including the one with Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali was a boxer.
We then get to see Bam's room in the cleanest state it'll ever be. The room features posters of him, Bam Margera skateboards, with a little bit of a touch of goth. Jen would make another appearance inside Bam's room, and she comes across as rather sweet.
That thing, Christmas, and I don't know if I'm cool with it yet. Kinda, but...
It's romantic.
But gamers be warned, Bam's basement is sick. The painted stone castle design leads you into an arcade with the likes of NBA Jam, Tetris, Dig Dug, Frogger, Pac-Man, Road Blasters, and more. Sleeping within the narrow hall of the basement is none other than Chris Rabb, who was living with Bam at the time. Interesting story to this, Rabb had pissed the guest room about 7 times, and Abe got so fed up that he had to sleep in the basement, and Jess even bought him a cot to sleep on. But at least he has quick access to a microwave and a radio.
This is Rabb himself, and he gets paid to just drink and get slapped in the face. Oh, that's what he gets money for.
Living in Bam's basement, would
living
sleep on the pipe.
Yeah, living in the back little, like, not finished part, and didn't have a car, so I was driving the car from Haggard.
The Rabb himself shipmobile.
Because I had gotten a DUI when I was like a year before, and then I had totaled my car, almost killed myself, all that kind of stuff. But then I didn't have a car, so then I took that car, and I was trying to drive that car up to college, and it didn't have brakes, and we know that story of that where, you know, the dashboard catches on fire, the brakes run out, I fly through the toll booth. That
yelling,
whole thing.
no brakes.
Yeah. But you're right, we had nothing. That was what I had. I had a fucking, like, Freddy Krueger, like, boiler room little existence.
Yeah.
The other side of the basement features a purple room with 2 quarter pipes, as seen in the CKY videos. Lastly, we get introduced to Bam's Ferrari Medina, and his 2 Audis. And let's not forget Bam's 7-foot-high mini-ramp, which I guess technically isn't a mini-ramp, because a mini-ramp is only 6 feet. But guys, Ryan Dunn's segment is by far my favorite. He looks so hungover. Ryan Dunn's lackadaisical attitude is just hilarious.
I'm Ryan Dunn, and this is my home. I can't really call it a crib. More like a mission. It's really a piece of crap. But you're more than welcome to come in if you'd like.
He has a pool room where he throws all of his bills. He doesn't pay them until somebody calls because he just hates licking the envelopes.
Use this, but we don't have any phone connection anymore because we didn't pay the bill, so...
Also use your cell phone. Ryan apparently sleeps on the floor in the basement because he likes it nice and cool. He also garbage picked a really nice locker.
I'm Chris Pontius. Welcome to my crib.
It wouldn't be fair if I didn't mention Pontius's entry in this, where he lives in his 1998 Toyota Tacoma. This is actually in relation to the bet Steve-O had with him about who could stay homeless the longest. Pontius actually ends up winning, so it's funny to see that joke play off here. And he just hits you with joke after joke. This is just a really funny segment.
None of these G-strings have ever been washed.
There's also a definitive addition to this where Pontius shows his eventual home. The Jackass Crib special is worth the watch if you haven't already.
Always make sure everyone in the car is buckled up for every ride. Obey all road signs and the speed limit, and always be conscious of other cars and drivers.
Oh my God, my brother!
Originally, there was skepticism among some members of the Jackass crew about the making of a movie, but Tremaine made it clear that the movie would be much like the show, but much naughtier. The R rating gave the crew much more flexibility on what could be shown. The version of the movie I own is the 2006 Collector's Edition, which featured 2 separate commentaries, one with the directors and one with the crew. Both of these happened in October of 2002. I actually found this out, interestingly enough, from this clip in the commentary.
All I'm picturing right now is all the folks in Portland watching this right now and being just bummed.
Speaking of Portland, CKY's up there playing a show.
Yeah, they are right now.
At the Meow Meow. You ever been there?
This will not be a complete review of the film. However, I will mention quite a lot from the companion book. Bam's feature in Jackass the movie was less than he wanted due to pulling his hamstring during the golf cart bit early into filming. The introduction of the movie is this cinematic, grandiose scene of the crew riding downhill in a giant shopping cart.
Everyone watching it to think that we just went completely Hollywood.
In comedy, that's called a misdirect, Jeff.
A misdirect. And people ended up liking it, which was too bad.
That meant fake debris, fog, explosions, and even a draft cameo. The scene ends with the crew taking a giant shopping cart slam.
Look at how high we're up right there.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Steve-O hit the building.
We were all pussies right there, so we had to raise it up 2 feet because we were scared.
While Hollywood was their last filming location, the Pacific Northwest would be the first, where they visited the home of Dave England. The crew mostly hated their time there.
It rains all the time. People don't like to work there. No one wants to live in misery all day. And then you go there and you go into a bar, everyone hates you because you're on TV. That's why Kurt Cobain killed.
The people seemed miserable and it was always rainy. One of the first bits they shot was the in-store crap. The goal was for Dave to walk into a home improvement store and do his thing on a display toilet. The first attempt ended prematurely, with Tremaine jabbing Dave and resulting in him to crap the van, as everyone evacuates and laughter ensues. Later, they would film the rent-a-car crash-up derby and the mousetrap bit.
Yeah, I love the fact that nobody even shows the fact that Aaron's driving one of the other cars. Yeah. it's not even recognized.
But I'm just gonna give him the credit there. January 26th, the crew would be hit with an unplanned snowstorm that left them hanging out in Dave England's living room. There, they filmed the muscle stimulator and the yellow snow cone. Lastly, they filmed the urban skimboarding bit, which was supposed to be in the TV series, but it didn't happen due to the lack of rain. So let's talk about their journey to Westchester that happened soon after. On page 40 of the companion book, it stated, "On this trip, however, it was not only the Margeras who were concerned about our presence, but the power that be for the whole damn township of Westchester as well." Immediately after touching down on the Keystone State, executive producer Trip Taylor was whisked off to attend a local city council meeting to discuss the fate of our proposed shooting plans, primarily the ones involving fireworks and live alligators. So the whole ass township of Westchester surprisingly conceded and approved the filming of the movie. Originally, the crew wanted to do a series of pranks throughout their whole stay. They decided against this, citing the law of diminishing reactions, basically meaning that Phil would become more aware over time and thus less reactive. So they decided to do something big with animals. Skunks were an idea that was passed around but was out of the question, so they decided to take the appropriate step to alligators instead.
Since we no longer have to bleep cuss words, I promise I will get my mom to say by the end of this movie.
And this worked with the alligator bit. The crew left an alligator in the Margera kitchen and another in the bathroom. Then, when Phil and Ape got home, boom! Good content. This segment's original target was supposed to be Phil. However, due to poor camera placement, it was just barely satisfactory to them, making the clip just a bonus scene.
What do you think April was saying? Oh, she'd have a worse heart attack. Well, I didn't have a heart attack, but she would go to see.
When is she coming out?
8 o'clock.
Dude, Ape is gonna have a shit fit.
When April got home, however, it was simply priceless. Her reaction slowly getting louder and louder as she screamed, "Is this thing real?" Phil would finally come down and stood unshocked and went into the kitchen. The gator hissing at Ape is definitely what did it.
I'm going out! I'm leaving! Where's my keys? That is the scariest I ever saw in my whole life!
Don't leave, where the hell you going?
Bam succeeded at his goal. The crew comes out and takes care of the gator as April is just still freaking out. One of the best bits in the entire series. I vividly remember this prank. Ape's reaction is just great.
I guess you could say that I demolished 4 golf carts in a matter of 2 hours.
The next day, the crew filmed the golf cart bit at a low-rent recreation center in Glen Mills, a course they actually got kicked out of before. During the commentary, upon seeing Deco, the crew questioned why he wasn't a part of the commentary.
What, he just doesn't want to be in it? Or
Yeah, Brandon
he hates to fly and he just likes to sit at home and
play video games.
He's like Tom Green from Road Trip, like he won't leave the town.
He won't.
That's why you'll rarely see Deco in scenes outside of driving distance from Westchester. The golf cart bit made the use of 2 electronic-powered golf carts. However, the carts were actually lame and failed to help the stunt, so the crew had to track down gas-powered ones, which had better speed for half the price. They named the 2 carts Gooch and Narkill. Bam and Deco would be in one, and Dunn and Knoxville would be in the other. Some of the footage in this scene was sped up a bit, but this didn't take it away from the action. The 2 carts would demolish the animal statues located by each hole. The 2 carts would drive full speed and perform jumps off of ramps. This stunt ended in an accident. While Dunn was driving, which is already a bad start, he attempted to jump off of the said ramp and failed. The cart became side heavy and Knoxville slammed to the ground, resulting in him to be temporarily unconscious. Knoxville was luckily okay. Dmitry Elyashkovich was a key member of the production crew for Jackass. He was a producer, a camera operator, and he was also a Russia interpreter on the Jackass Gumball Rally special.
I'm gonna go ride in the cart. What am I doing?
You're riding in the cart.
Awesome.
Dude, my head's gonna get jacked, dude.
No, you're good. No, I'm not, dude.
Dmitry wanted to get a point of view shot of Dunn in Knoxville, but ended up chipping his front tooth on a couple of clubs. While Dmitry was sent to emergency dental surgery, he missed the bungee wedgie, featuring none other than Rab himself. The bungee wedgie was simple. It was 3 bungee cords clipped to a pair of tidy whities. Then it would be strapped onto a tree. Rab would descend off of said tree and get stopped by a severe wedgie. The first attempt resulted in complete laughter as the underwear gave out. Then they attempted the same stunt with 4 pairs. It was much more successful. Rab personally hated this stunt, only because of the 30-degree weather that morning in Westchester.
Let's just chuck this motherfucker out of the car and be done with it.
The body bag dump is a rare deleted scene filmed on February 19th. It's a very dark prank, guys. The objective was for one of the CKY guys to be wrapped in a bloody plastic body bag and pulled out of a van, then beaten and thrown into a dumpster. This part was originally meant for Rab, but he fell ill after the previous stunt. Thus, Ryan would be the random hero. The footage came out great, but it resulted in spectators believing what they saw, thus contacting the police.
Keep going.
This resulted in the arrival of 5 police cars, 1 ambulance, and an APB. The situation would eventually calm down after police learned about their filming permit, but this didn't stop a stranger who would poke his head inside the van and ask Dunn if he thought he was a pretty funny guy. Knowing Dunn, he didn't really think so, but he still got slugged in the head anyway, and the guy just left and sped off.
Because I always fucking hated it.
Tremaine has constantly been told about Rake Yunn's complete hatred of mustard, and he wanted to get it finally on film. He decided to ask Bam and Deco to dump 2 bottles of mustard onto Rake. No one in the CKY crew wanted to do it.
The maddest Rake has ever been in his entire life is when Brand put mustard on his french fries near Rake's buffalo wings.
Just flipped out. Because he didn't believe that I was putting mustard on wings, so.
And Ryan and Deco both agreed to not take part, since they both live within walking distance of Rake's kill radius. And you guys have to remember, dude, Rake Yunn is a chemist, so if he wanted to fuck you up, he really could.
Dude, he lives a block away from me. A block, dude. You live in another township. Oh, I won't spray him. That's the damn deal. That's first off. He could walk to my house and kill me. Second off, I don't even want to know what you're planning, because I don't want to fucking know, because I gotta live with him when you guys go home, dude.
But Bam decided to do it himself. While Rake's back was turned, he sprayed his whole back with yellow mustard. Rake's response was met with rage I've never seen.
Okay, everything's fucking funny, right? You want to see funny?
He begins to target Bam's Audi A4 with furious kicks to the side door. Tremaine would try to intervene and defend Bam, as it was originally his idea, but Rake would not listen. He was in a complete state of rage. He attacked the van a couple more times and stormed off to the hotel room. And I think the best part of the entire thing was Jess's response to everything.
Dude, I'm actually surprised he took it that mellow.
Dude, I would never sleep again, man.
Took it that mellow. He just kicked my fucking
dude,
car.
I thought he was gonna.
The fireworks wake-up bit was when Bam lit fireworks inside his parents' bedroom at 12:42 a.m. Shout out to Phil instinctually protecting Ape here. Bam's outfit is quite the look. We got 2 Russian trapper hats on top of each other, 2 gold chains, both requested by Bam, and a giant bandage covering his bruised rib. All courtesy of the prop department. Phil had to be up at 5 for his job as a baker, so he walks out to his van and gets in. But the fireworks go off in the back of the van, and Phil immediately gets out, and his reaction was priceless.
Jesus Christ, Bam, almost broke my leg getting out of there. There's shit all over the goddamn. How am I going to work now?
And his van would just be flipped over on its top, but that proved to be too problematic.
Well, the movie people wouldn't let us do it because you have to drain all the fluids, apparently.
No, what happened was where he worked wouldn't let it. We were going to do it where he worked,
that's right.
and they wouldn't let us put it in the parking lot there.
Well,
we were also going to saw the van in half.
The Psycho spoof, aka the Clipper Cam, was a bit involving electronic clippers. In this, someone would suddenly get shaved while caught off guard. Bam's reaction was met with a jolt. And honestly, I kind of feel bad for him because
I was so bummed right here. I loved my hair at this point.
That pisses me off, dude.
Yeah, you look good there.
didn't even get it.
Really? Dude, you look really good there. Thanks. I think you look really good in the mustard assault. That was your best hairdo.
The mustard assault?
However, I do think Danger Aaron had it far worse because he got it multiple times. Deco BMX jousts Bam while he was inside a convenience store. One guy actually walks up to the camera and he was super upset.
What's going on here?
I really had them crutches on. I wasn't even using that as a prop.
This dude steals the whole scene right here.
Yeah, oh god.
Dude, I wish
What the
that
hell's going on here?
I wish that
What's
chick
going on here? He was so bummed.
Aw, dude, let's talk about the Family Guy reference. So, Phil would do his usual business in the bathroom. He would sit down on the toilet, open up the paper, and give it a read. But then Bam would suddenly bust in and slap the shit out of him. And then, after he's done...
Now what is? Are you starting to lose your mind? Shit, can't stop it. Now you're getting crazy.
He races out the door and he leaves the cameraman behind.
Hey!
He's like, hey, he's starting to lose it. Starting to. Like me kicking his ass and ripping his shirt off is starting to lose it.
Like he hadn't been looking around the house.
Starting to lose it. What's officially losing it?
Bam and Knoxville did a bit titled Burglars. The two would fall through the ceiling of a library. The two would then quickly gather the diamonds that they dropped. There's this one dude who bolted out the door immediately, and he had to be chased down to get him to sign a waiver. BMX Tug of War was a bit where Dunn rides a bike over a ramp in front of a cactus. The twist was that Dunn was attached to Preston, who was chilling on a couch. Preston would stop Dunn, and he would just simply fall into the cactus, and regrets ensued. The crew actually had to take 2 separate shots of this because Preston was actually too heavy for the bit and didn't move, so they did another shot of just pulling him off the couch. The crew would spend some time in Japan, where they do quite a few great public pranks, just reminding the world why they hate Americans. Scenes like Party Boy, Wasabi Stooters, Big Cone, The Gong, and Night Panda are just a few of the scenes they shot in public Tokyo. My favorite is Dunn getting his ass kicked by a girl, just simply hilarious. The crew also spent some time in Florida, mostly in Orlando, Hollywood, and Miami. April 1st would be the day they filmed The Butt X-Ray. The bit where someone shoves a toy car up their ass and then sees a doctor for an x-ray. This was an idea that was turned down by MTV during the Volume 1 days. Steve-O was originally going to be the candidate for the stunt. However, after receiving a call from his disappointed father, Steve-O's guilt made him step down. Thus, the random hero saves the day once again.
That hurt, but it wasn't necessarily a physical pain. It was more of a mental pain. I just needed like a hug from a girl when I was done with that one.
Give me a hug, dude. No, give me a hug. I got a toy car in my ass. For fuck's sake.
Ryan Dunn backs the car within himself and visits a doctor's office twice. The first time he just got laughed at, so he left with no content. And then he ended up going to an older Cuban doctor, and that guy's reaction was far better.
That's just a car toy.
How did a car toy get there?
Maybe you stuck it up your ass.
The entire bit is one of the best in the series. Kudos to the air horn golf course bit. I know this sounds mean, but I guess it's just funny seeing golfers get mad.
Here, you lost your club. What? I'm sorry, I got bursitis.
You got bursitis?
Yeah.
So that means you gotta play with a horn.
It helps.
I'll give you something to play with, pal.
Bam's classic fat suit made its return in Sweaty Fat Fucks, where Bam, Matt Hoffman, and Tony Hawk dress in fat suits and skate at the Van Skate Park in Orlando. Matt Hoffman took a wicked bump in the way beginning, but got back up and continued to do it. Bam would do his notorious SSBSTS in the suit, nailing it on his second try. This featured a lot of great shots. One of my favorites was how you could see Bam eating potato chips, but then he wipes out and he gets fucking clocked by his board. This bit, however, had to be cut short because Bam was actually on the verge of heat stroke.
Doing this shit in Florida was the worst mistake ever.
The crew revisits a popular site from the TV series, that being called Camp Pain, the area where Slip and Slide, Lake Jump, and The Loop were filmed at. Here they did the BMXican wakeboarding stunt with Matt Hoffman. Not much is known about this stunt because it's actually lost. I don't think there was any bonus scenes for it either. This, however, is a lost stunt.
The smoke machine at the same time. Because not enough power.
We're doing a goddamn Paramount motion picture and we can't put on fog and lights at the same time. That's not too much to ask, man. Fog and lights together at once for a major motion picture.
Roller Truck Disco is a stunt where the crew is having a roller skating disco party inside a box truck. Preston would then get into the driver's seat of the truck and begin to do donuts in a parking lot. Before this stunt, actually, Bam suffered from food poisoning.
Fuck all 5 of you.
From a bad sub while being at Camp Pain. He vomited in the van and also on his way there. He still, however, successfully did the stunt without actually purging on camera. Originally, the ending was supposed to be filmed in Orlando for the final segment titled Ruby Goldberg. Much like the cause and effect action you would find in a typical Goldberg machine, the crew would do a chain reaction of stunts that closely resemble what they are known for. Preston would be the human wrecking ball, Aaron would take a porta potty bump, Don would get clocked by a boxing glove, and then would be tarred and feathered. Steve-O would fall into a septic pool and accumulate vomit in a bucket. Wee Man would fall into a Plinko board. Dave would, never mind.
I have the worst one of them all besides Steve-O. I'm in a goddamn circus and I come down on these 3 trampolines and then fly into that 2-foot shit of a lake.
Pontius hops over several alligators, and lastly, Knoxville would get launched off of a catapult into a lake. The camera would then pan over to Rip Taylor frantically slinging confetti and announcing the end of the movie. This bit was a massive failure and a waste of money. Several of the mechanisms just straight up didn't work, like the boxing glove or the toilet paper platform. The continuity of being a Ruby Goldberg machine shattered within every take, to the point where they ran out of time to get it done, thus resulting in a premature ending to the film. However, we would get an alternative ending called Son of Jackass, where the crew dresses up as old men and get themselves destroyed in various ways. On May 21st, there would be a showing of the film in front of friends and MTV film executives. Here, they cut a few of the bits that they saw as too dark, including the body bag, the sleeper hold, and the pocket ass return. Most of the cut content was put into the collector's edition, which we also get a couple music videos, including Andrew WK's music video, We Want Fun.
This is what I'm told. Bam, we gotta fly out to Hollywood because we're doing this Andrew WK video. We're doing this house party. I'm picturing like this nice mansion, you know, and then here we are in the desert. There's cans and stuff hanging around.
All in all, the movie is fantastic. My favorite bit was probably a tie between the toy car and the butterbean stunt, which I didn't really mention until now, but I wanted to at least give that a shout out. Jackass the movie was highly successful. It was a #1 film at the US box office when it opened, grossing $22.8 million in over 2,500 theaters. The film would achieve a worldwide gross of $79.5 million. Bam has stated in the past that he made about $5 million payouts for each movie, making Bam an instant millionaire following this. And not only that, but the film gave the crew a much wider audience to view their antics, increasing their market to a global scale beyond television. Whether you liked it or hate it, Jackass was exploring the unknown, trying out a formula that most fictional films lacked. Like, yeah, it's just a bunch of guys torturing their bodies by doing ridiculous and occasionally juvenile stuff, but the way they did it was something special. That laughter and camaraderie of the crew helped make the viewer feel a part of the fun. It's the fact that they know what they're doing is stupid, but do it in a way that not just humors themselves, but also all that watch. The movie could be criticized for being grotesque, moronic, and irresponsible, but that's being a jackass. That sort of criticism isn't just expected, but it's admired and praised by the Jackass crew and community. To see Jackass come from a small budget handycam TV series and blossom into a multi-million-dollar brand is a very fascinating thing to see. But with all that, guys, it's time to conclude the first act of the life of Bam Margera.
Alright, welcome to the conclusion of the life of Bam Margera, guys. So, here are all my personal thoughts on the project so far. So from this point forward, this is all opinion-based. This is just what I personally think so far. Bam, during this period, he was a very loved and supported guy. He was diligent, he was self-motivated towards getting shit done, and Joe Franz even mentions to Rab on his podcast about how he idolized how committed the crew were at creating projects.
I had been trying this for years, and I had spent years of my life going from different groups of people, trying to find people that we met eye to eye creatively.
Yeah.
And also were willing to work hard.
Yeah.
No one gives you shit in this world. You have to fucking go earn it. And you guys were like actually willing to do the work.
Yeah.
It's interesting watching the CKY movies progress. Landspeed CKY, we saw Bam as a rambunctious amateur skater with a passion for making videos using a simple handycam. Then by CKY 4, we see Bam reach celebrity status, networking with the likes of very talented people that could keep up with his antics. However, as we all know, there's a much darker side to Bam and the CKY crew. By the end of 2002, Bam became a millionaire by doing nothing more than following his dreams, proving those guidance counselors wrong. But that could also affect his maturity. He achieved his millionaire status around the age of 23. Imagine being 23 and having the ability to do whatever the fuck you want. And we all know that Bam will get the opportunity to do whatever the fuck he wants.
Whatever the fuck I want.
So here's some more notes I have on Bam. Bam didn't just simply get lucky, it was clear that he was self-motivated and had a vision for his success, and he followed that vision. He took chances and risks that resulted in him meeting the likes of the Jackass crew and skateboarding legends. He had to put the time in for CKY to be as good as it was, and for his skating talent to be at a pro skater status. A lot of this could be thanks to the support of his family, especially Phil and Ape. I'm sure I'm not the only one that thinks this way, guys, but I think Phil and Ape's parenting wasn't the best. Like, yeah, they were awesome parents. They basically let the boys skip school to skate. But I feel like they also lacked discipline on both Bam and Jess. Ape mentioned that she grew up in an uptight household and wanted to do the opposite. However, it seemed in segments like A Day in the Life of Bam Margera, Ape just lets Bam walk all over her. The dude just had to do the dishes, and instead he just chooses to give Ape lip about it. Ape and Phil both just let Bam do whatever the fuck he wants to them. It does pay off, cause he does bring in the big bucks and bought him a whole house, but I think this in a way enables Bam's denial of accountability when it comes to doing chores and responsibilities. And speaking of enabling, Bam is an obvious enabler, hence Chris Rabb and Brandon Novak as two examples. While on Steve-O's podcast, Rabb mentioned how Bam was always looking for a yes man to positively reinforce his decisions.
Yeah, I think that there was a level of like Bam had this idea of having someone that was sort of a yes man or a whipping boy of sorts. Well, yeah, for sure. And tried to kind of put me into that role, and as I didn't like that role and shifted away from that, yes, Novak slid into that.
We'll see this come out more in later years, especially with Brandon Novak. It's kinda sad to believe that Bam couldn't see Rabb struggle with alcoholism at this point, and instead chose to just let him rot in his basement, whether he realized it or not. Bam is always looking for what makes his persona tick. He finds out what gets the best reaction and tries to build off of it. This is why I think Bam messing with Phil becomes a comedy trait for him, or the response of him doing Jackass on the Tony Hawk tour. Bam has this aura to him that just attracts my attention, and I think Bam really loves that attention and strives to maintain it. And I'm not saying this just because he's a good-looking guy, but he seems full of energy and charisma at this point. It feels like his persona on camera is almost like how he acts in real life, and that makes him feel relatable. So many remember Bam as being a sweet kid during this period, and it's evident knowing fan interactions and how quick he is to reach out to his fans. However, as far as Bam's decision-making goes, he is rather me-oriented.
Why, they're supposed to be here?
I say that because he believes what he thinks is best and what's right. He thought that shooting himself in the foot justifies to do the same to Phil, even though he did way more than just that. He uses the camera to justify a lot of his playful attacks. And yes, Bam dropped out of high school to seek success, and he did achieve that.
Bought a brand new Audi, drove it to the school and waited for the guidance counselor to come out. And the guidance counselor was impressed, but not that impressed. So a year later, Bam bought a Ferrari and drove to the school and waited outside until the guidance counselor came out. And then the guidance counselor apologized to him.
But that also kind of enabled him to believe in his decisions more strongly. And sometimes he gets a little careless with that, like his sex tape with Jen, or what happens when you ask Bam about being in a CKY video. Both incidents were careless decisions that Bam should have thought ahead about. Bam is also surrounded by drug and alcohol use, and when the CKY crew and the Jackass crew combine, this gets amplified. So Bam is almost going to be normalized to that rock and roll party culture. He does not know anything about addiction or mental health, and I mean, he kinda let Novak, a heroin addict, in just to live with him and believe that he could just simply get better. And I also don't think that Steve-O is probably not the best influence either, and also with Vil Vallow being his idol. Can you guys see where I'm heading with this? The next season of Life of Bam Margera, we'll be looking at 2002 to 2011. That was a period when Bam's fame peaked with the success of Viva La Bam and Radio Bam. Let's of course not forget the Jackass movies. However, it will also be the time where we see Bam's flaws come out much more as he begins to grow with his ego as it inflates by his wealth and fame, only for things to come to a halt in the summer of 2011. So that's what I think so far, guys. Let me know your thoughts on the project so far. I spent a whole year working on this, and come on, it's come and gone so quickly. I want to thank everyone that supported me in this project. You guys have been wonderful. The Jackass community has been really easy to talk to. Bunch of chill guys there. Check out the Jackass subreddit, the fan Discord. I even had to sacrifice my analytics for this too. But it's cool though, I'm good. Please try to pass around this video if you can, guys. I put a lot of work into this, and you know, I didn't want to just do a 30-minute video, so I ended up doing a 3-hour video for like 1/4 of his life already instead, I guess. So I'm also gonna leave my pronunciation error there. Yeah, so just gonna have to live with that. What's an Uncle Unbaited video without a pronunciation error? I appreciate you guys watching this series so far. Thank you very much. Have a good one.